What if Deku met Goddess Artemis on that trash beach? One glance, one whisper, one divine blessing. The moment their eyes met, everything changed. The air felt heavy with destiny and unspoken feelings. A forbidden connection between a quirkless boy and an ancient goddess. A twirl, hands entwined. The soft splashing of water at our feet as we spun, our eyes never leaving one another's. The warmth heating my body as the corner of my lips lifted without my knowledge. This feeling in my chest, this feeling is something I never felt before. These butterflies in my navel, his beautiful crimson eyes, coarse hands of a warrior bearing such a gentle touch. I wish we could have spent eternity together. Do you know that the gods who descend to this realm are promised 10,000 years of romance? 10,000 years of romance. The eternal love that ties your reincarnated lives and our immortal lives. Orion, I'm glad that I met you. Tears fell from my eyes. I could hear Hestia crying. I remembered his face as he saw me fade away. I thought he had lost hope. Then came the tolling of the bell, the fluttering of raw Excelia. I could hear the thoughts of Orion. I was so happy to hear that tolling of the bell, because I knew that he wouldn't be murdering a goddess. He would be saving me. My Orion, Bell Cranal. When his knife pierced my chest and I was freed, I was the happiest I have ever been. Thank you, Orion. And I felt the last remnants of my arcanum leave me, allowing me to see him one last time. Goddess Artemis. Did you know, even gods reincarnate after death? Now smile for us to meet again. My Orion clenched his hands, his eyes downcast, before looking up with a hopeful smile. When will that be? I smile, eyes cast down at the reflective lake of my last meeting with him. Who knows, maybe 100 years or 1,000 years from now on, it could even take 10,000 years. Bell smiled sadly. I won't be alive. I cupped his cheek. But I know you will be reborn in this world. I know I'll see you again. I skipped back, so. Next time we meet, let's have 10,000 years of romance, Bell. Tears streamed down my face, my heart aching for that moment we will be reunited. Bell's breath hitches, but he smiles, also tearing up. The last I saw him was his eyes filling with tears. Then my arcanum exploded, and I returned to the divine realm. At least that's what I thought would happen. Can even someone without a quirk be a hero? I clenched my eyes shut, wishing beyond hope, putting everything on the line. My meeting with All Might, this miracle. Without a quirks. I always wanted to be a hero, but I'm always made fun of, but I think saving people is super cool. I want to be the greatest hero, like you. My heart is beating rapidly, anxiously. I'm sorry. It stops. I cannot simply say, you can become a hero even without power. I see, shattered pieces, tattered remains, a dream crumbling. That's all I registered. You could help people another way, like being a police officer. That is also a fine occupation. It's not bad to dream. But you also have to consider what's realistic, young man. All Might leaps off. I collapse to my knees, my hands clenching my chest desperately, clinging to hope that this painful feeling in my heart wasn't real. That my hero, All Might himself, didn't even believe in me. I don't know how long I was on that roof. It could have been hours or minutes. I don't know. I eventually climbed down, my eyes flickering to the edge before shaking my head, dismissing any such thoughts. Those thoughts were dangerous and shouldn't be acknowledged. Even if my pipe dream is just that, I have to consider my mom. I can't do that to her. I stumbled through the city, dazed, time was a haze. I don't know when, but I came upon the beach. It was littered with trash, and I couldn't help the snort of self-deprecating humor. At least I am where I belong. I maneuvered my way through the massive heaps, making my way to where land meets sea, and I stared off into the distance, admiring the moonlit water. It was in a crescent tonight, and I couldn't help but marvel at the beauty of it. Time was a distant relative at that point, always there but uncaring. I sighed and stood, shaking the sand from my legs. When did I even sit down? I shook my head, eyes downcast, before clenching my fists and looking up at the moon. Who cares what All Might thinks? I will be a hero. I yelled to the sky. Silence, like even the universe didn't believe me. I wasn't so sure I believed me either. My arms fell to my side, relaxing. I sighed before turning to leave. I stopped. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a glowing that was slowly fading. I gulped and approached it, turning around the corner of a particularly large pile of trash, and let out a gasp. Laying in the sand was the most beautiful woman I have ever laid my eyes on. She looked ethereal, like a divine being I had no right to lay my eyes upon. She was clad in a silken white gown that clung to her body, sand defiling the purity of her image, clinging to the dress like parasites. Her long blue hair was layered around her head, creating an image of peaceful rest. I gulped and approached, nudging her shoulder slightly. "Excuse me, are you okay?" Even her skin seemed ethereal, glowing dimly in the moonlight. There wasn't any response, so I nudged her again. She let out an innocent moan, the kind of someone who doesn't wish to wake up yet, before her eyes fluttered open and met my own, squinted in confusion. I was captivated for a moment, her eyes being a beautiful green, reminding me of the time my mom brought me to go hiking Mount Fuji, the same green as the forests I had hiked with her. "Oh, Orion," she whispered, before shaking her head and lightly pushing my hand off her shoulder. She leaned forward, looking around confusedly. "Ma'am?" I questioned, her eyes locked with mine. Tears began to fill her eyes and fall. I panicked. "Crap, did I mess up? Please don't cry, I'm sorry." My words came out in a garbled mess as the girl hiccoughed, her hand going over her mouth as she sobbed. "Please, please don't cry, miss," I said awkwardly. The woman seemed to try and compose herself, swallowing down her tears. "I am sorry. I'm okay. What's your name, child?" she asked, and I felt confusion at the strange way she addressed me. She didn't look much older than I, Izuku Midoriya. "I am the goddess Artemis. It's a pleasure to meet you, Izuku." "Gee, goddess?" I fell back in shock. "No way, are you kidding? There's no way, gods and goddesses don't exist, do they?" Mumble, mumble, I proceeded to get lost in my thoughts, only for them to be cut out by a giggle. "It's true, Midoriya, I am indeed a goddess, though not a very good one," she started to tear up again. I went to reach out and comfort her, only to pull my hand back. "I barely know this girl, she may be delusional." How do I know you're telling the truth?" I asked hesitantly. I may be delusional for even considering this, but I have had a weird and rough day. "Oh, I have Arcanum, of course." "What's Arcanum?" "Divine energy of the gods." "What?" "Here, let me just show you." Artemis closed her eyes, and for a moment she seemed serene, like she fell asleep into wonderful dreams. Suddenly she began to glow, a beautiful assortment of colors all merging and flowing together in an ethereal light show. Suddenly, a bow appeared in her hands. It was silver in color, and was the most finely crafted bow Izuku had ever seen, not that he had seen many. Got to her feet and drew the bow, an arrow appearing on the string, and she let it loose. The arrow flew towards the water, causing a riptide to form around the arrow as it moved so fast it forced the water out of the way, and I was gobstopped. That was incredible. "Wow," I breathed. Artemis smiled, still glowing, and I felt my heart skip a beat. Somewhere, deep in my very soul, I knew she was telling the truth. This was a divine being. I stood there dumbly, having no idea how to process this. Ring, 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 ring. The ringing of my phone snapped me out of my awe-induced state, and I fumbled for a second before pulling my phone out of my pocket. 30 missed calls, 86 unread messages. Mom was calling. Crap, she is gonna be so worried. Sorry, I gotta take this. Artemis tilted her head, and I turned away and answered my phone. Izuku Midoriya. "Where are you? It's almost midnight. Do you know how worried I was when you didn't respond? Please come home, Izuku. You scared the living daylights out of me." Izuku could hear his mother crying up a storm on the other side of the phone, and he panicked. "I'm sorry, Mom. I have had an interesting day and needed some time to think. I'll be home soon. I'm safe, and I met All Might today, too. And someone else, she's very nice." I tilted my phone away from my ear for a split second, looking over to Artemis. "Do you have a place to stay, Goddess Artemis?" The title for her slipped from my mouth naturally. Artemis looked shocked before slowly shaking her head, her eyes downcast. I gulped. Mom, the lady I met doesn't have a place to stay. Can she stay with us?" Artemis looked shocked. "Izuku." She sighed on the other end of the phone. "Okay, I know you wouldn't invite someone if they didn't need it. You're too kind for your own good, you know." I smiled. I want to be a hero, remember. In hindsight, inviting a complete stranger to stay with you is probably a bad idea. but I have already done it, so there is no going back. The two of us were standing outside of my apartment door, and I was just standing there, mentally panicking as to how to explain to Mom the decisions I had made. Why did I trust this lady's word? What if she was a villain? No, then she would have attacked immediately, right? Why did she claim she was a goddess? Is she a goddess? How am I going to explain this to Mom? Izuku. I snapped to attention to see a bemused Artemis. You were mumbling. Oh, yeah, that sounds like something I would do. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Mom, I'm home and I brought my friend. I mentally panicked. What do I even call her? Is she my friend? Inko Midoriya shot around the corner, tears already spewing from her eyes, and she engulfed me in a bear hug, and I promptly started to turn blue. My baby, you made me so worried. Don't ever do that to me again, you hear? Mom released me from her death grip and started patting me down, looking for injuries that could have possibly have delayed me from returning home or have prevented me from answering. I heard a cough, and apparently so did Mom, as she looked up to see Artemis standing in the door frame with a soft smile on her face. Oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot Izuku mentioned he was bringing someone. Mom bowed. I am Inko Midoriya, Izuku's mother. I apologize for not acknowledging you sooner. My face must have been burning red with how embarrassed I was, and I started shooing Mom further inside. Let's at least take a seat for proper introductions, don't you think, Mom? My smile must have been pretty strained, as she obeyed without any hassle. Artemis followed in after us, closing the door behind her and peering around the modest apartment with curiosity. I flustered. This is the first time I've had a girl over. I let out a mental gasp. I talked to a girl. The three of us sat at the kitchen table, and it was then that I realized there was a heavenly smell permeating through the room. Apparently, Mom cooked. My stomach grumbled, being echoed by Artemis, and we both flushed. Mom let out a sly smirk and put some plates of food on the table in front of Artemis and me. It was some sukiyaki, and I smiled. Thanks, Mom, I said. Yes, thank you for the meal. I should introduce myself. I am the goddess Artemis. I mentally panicked at her introduction, and my face shot towards my mother to see how she would react. She froze stiffly, looking towards Artemis. Gee, goddess. She yelled, like mother like son, I guess. You must be joking. Mom yelled, and I flinched. It wasn't an angry yell, but a shocked one. Artemis giggled and let loose her godly aura. I think she called it arcanum. Anyways, she started to glow the memorizing rainbow of colors that entranced me for a split second before I shook it off. The same feeling of awe filled me at the sight, and I found myself unconsciously smiling. How do I know that isn't just a quirk? Mom asked, and I realized that, yeah, how do I know it's not just a quirk? I peered over at Artemis, my eyebrows furrowed in question. Yet when I looked at her, all I saw was confusion. Quirk? She asked. I was astonished to realize she genuinely didn't know what a quirk was. What's a quirk? I looked back towards Mom, my neck feeling like I was about to get whiplash from how often I was looking between them. Why, you're serious? Mom stuttered, and she slumped in her chair. Artemis looked confused at our reactions and simply nodded. Okay. Goddess Artemis, a quirk is something 80% of the population is born with, a mutation in the human genome that gives us unique abilities. Anywhere from growing extra long fingers to being able to create explosions from their hands. That's what quirks are. I explained, giving the short version of the answer. Artemis nodded slowly and sighed, looking downcast. I think I know what happened. The gods and goddesses are aware of the different worlds, but most of us are focused on the world of adventurers. I vaguely remember this world, but the last time any of us interacted with it actively was 3,500 or so years ago. It was some time before we descended to interact with our children, so I'm afraid I am around 2,000 years behind the times. Artemis let out a shaky smile, and I think Mom and I were thinking the same thing. 2,000 years. Okay, do you have any more proof of being a goddess? I dislike the idea of having a complete stranger in our home who claims to be a goddess, so I apologize for the scrutiny. I cannot let anyone harm my baby boy. Mom looked scary with her eyes focused directly onto Artemis. Artemis appeared to be thinking before her eyes lit up. The blessing. The what? When the gods and goddesses descended onto the world of adventurers, We bestowed a blessing upon individuals to go fight in the dungeon, a way for them to grow past their mortal limits and succeed. We called it the blessing, and individuals with it adventurers. She turned to me and smiled. You said you wanted to be a hero, right? Why, yeah, but unlike the 80% I mentioned, I'm quirkless. I don't have any abilities to help me fight. I was told earlier today by All Might he's the #1 hero in Japan that I couldn't be a hero. Artemis frowned before brightening again, and I vaguely wondered why I said so much to her. I believe you can be a hero, and if I get your permission, she glanced towards Mom, and your mother's, I can bestow my blessing upon you. It will allow you to be a hero, and it should prove my status right. Mom hesitated, but I knew from the look in her eyes that she meant every word. The words, I believe you can be a hero, resonated with me, and I began to tear up. No one had ever said that to me, not even Mom. I want to try it. I looked towards my mom, crying, please, Mom, just let her try. Mom hesitated before sighing and giving a nod. The food was cold by now, and I vaguely wondered how exactly this came to be. This wasn't how I anticipated things going. But somehow, this stranger, this goddess, she's giving me hope. I need to believe in her. Okay then. Artemis stood up and grabbed my sleeve, pulling me towards the couch. Take your shirt off and lay on your stomach, please. What? My face went bright red before nodding slowly. Mechanically, I took off my shirt before realizing something. Oh no. I heard a light gasp and a muffled choke of surprise. I knew what they saw. Scars and burns decorated my torso like little star pops. Izuku. Not right now, please. Just let's get this over with. The excitement I had been feeling just a few moments ago had died now that I knew I had accidentally revealed what I had been hiding from Mom for so long. I heard Artemis gulp. I laid down on the couch, face down, before feeling a weight settle on top of me. Peering up behind me, all that worry jumped right out of my mind when I realized a girl was straddling me. Wait, is that a knife she's holding? What? I panicked for a split second before I saw Artemis prick her finger and a single droplet of gold. Wait, no, ichor. Ichor bubbled up on her finger and it fell. To my perception, it fell impossibly slow, like the entire world had settled in on that one moment before it finally impacted against my naked spine, and I felt agony. The burning agony of being set on fire, all centered on my back, and I did everything I could to not scream, biting into the couch. I vaguely heard my mother's worried calling, and I wondered for a split second if I was wrong, and that this girl was actually killing me, before, abruptly, the pain vanished. I blinked the tears out of my eyes. When did I start to cry? Anne stood up, looking at Artemis, who was sitting back, smiling apologetically. Well, Izuku, it worked. Welcome to the Artemis Familia as the newest member. Her smile turned sad, and I could have sworn I heard her mumble something. And last. I got off the couch and looked towards Mom. She was shocked. Izuku, you're back, and I turned and tried to look over my shoulder and saw something there before going to the kitchen and looking in the mirror. And there it was. The symbol of a bow and arrow tattooed onto his back, words written around it in a language I could not interpret, and I stood shocked, because beyond that my back was smooth, unblemished. All the scars that were there just moments before were gone. In its place was the bow and arrow and muscle definition. Not much, but a definite difference. Izuku, can you come back here for a second? I heard Artemis call, and I walked back in feeling different. Not just different, amazing. I haven't felt this well in a long time. Artemis was sitting on the couch, a piece of paper in her hands. When did she get that? And was smiling at me, Mom still standing stock still, likely shocked. Yes, Goddess Artemis, because what else was I going to call her? There was no longer any doubt. This beautiful woman sitting in my living room was a goddess, an immortal being that had just given me the greatest gift I could have ever asked for. Hope. Artemis handed me the sheet of paper and I looked down at it. Izuku Midoriya. LV1. SDR I right arrow, I-77. VIT I right arrow, I-13. Dex I right arrow, I-93. AGI I right arrow, H-148. Mag I right arrow, I. Magic. Skill, Argonaut. Ilios Passion. What is this? I looked up at Artemis to see her smiling. It's your status. It's essentially your basic abilities, skills, magic, and your level. It's how powerful you are. When I gave you the blessing, it awakened your untapped potential and used up the excess Exilia you had to raise your status. It shows how far you've progressed. When I gave you your Falna, the tattoo on your back, I also updated your status, your blessing. Any experiences you had before I gave you the blessing all accumulated into your current status. Artemis explained. What's Exilia? Exilia is experience. It's also the source of magic and life. Magic. Yep, Izuku Midoriya, you'll be able to use magic. You're on your way to becoming a hero. Why yeah, I guess I am. Hey, Goddess Artemis. She peeked her head over her shoulder as she and Mom worked together on making lunch. Yes, Izuku. Well, remember the beach where we met? I have been thinking that I should clean it up as a form of training. I was cut off my Artemis carefully setting down the food she had been preparing and tackling me in a hug. Yes, that sounds like a wonderful idea. Restoring nature is the best thing anyone can do, in fact. Back in my old world, me and my familia, she froze, choking up for a second as she thought of them. I still don't know much about my goddess, but I do know that before I found her, she had just experienced something terrible. I hoped that one day she could tell me. Sorry, she said, before giving a small smile, clearly bottling up the feelings she was experiencing. That sounds like a wonderful idea. So yeah, apparently being the goddess of the hunt, among other things, she has values. One of which is the protection and restoration of wildlife and nature. She loves forests, but anything that could be considered natural she wants to protect and nurture. So when I told her about me thinking about cleaning the beach, she was definitely approving. This brings me back to here, Takoba Municipal Beach Park, where I met Goddess Artemis, where I found myself picking up the shattered remains of my dreams and putting them back together. And now I shall do the same for the very beach I find myself. Let's get to work. Plus ultra, right? Why the hell was there a whole damn truck? Okay, baby steps. Let's get these tires done and over with. I managed to contact a local recycling center that was partnered with a small support company, Hatsu Something Industries, who is providing me with an industrial-sized dumpster, and they will collect the trash twice a week. Which is nice. I'm actually getting paid for this somehow. Apparently, the recycling company will pay me for the usable scrap. It feels kind of dirty getting paid for just doing something nice for the environment, but I won't complain. I swiped my brow, clearing the sweat off my forehead, tears forming in my eyes as sweat stung at them, hauling an old speaker on my shoulder and running it to the dumpster, tossing it up and over into the bin. There was a lot of mundane stuff here, but honestly, some of it was ridiculous. The whole damn truck, a barrel which isn't that bad by itself, but it was filled with live eels, gross, and a whole guitar, strings included. It was honestly terrifying and disheartening what people would toss out. I suddenly heard a loud crash of multiple objects falling down followed by a scream, and I whipped my head in the direction of the noise, immediately bolting towards where I heard it. Turning a corner around a particularly large pile of junk, I saw a girl with pink dreadlocks and a pair of steampunk-esque goggles strapped over her face, pinned down by a metal rod. Oh God, it's embedded in her shoulder. The girl was just starting at it, a confused expression on her face. I think she is in shock. There isn't much blood, but that's likely because it pierced all the way through, which, oh God, why is she so calm? I immediately approached, mentally panicking, and physically panicking. Are you okay? No, stupid question, you have a pole sticking out of your arm. Why did I ask if you were okay when you're clearly not? I need to call someone. The girl looked up at me as I started to fumble for my phone and dialed for emergency services. Hello, I'm Mei Hatsum, who are you? I looked over at her, shocked. She is way too cheerful for this. Izuku Midoriya, medical personnel are on the way, Miss Hatsum. Oh good, having a pole in my arm would be detrimental to making babies. What? Oh yeah, I was working on a jetpack prototype modeled off of the Buster Hero, Airjet. It was going so well, but one of the pipes for it melted, but it was cheap metal so I wasn't worried, so I needed a better alloy for it, which led me here. The best place to get any valuable scrap. Then I saw this beauty, she gestured to the pipe in her arm, I felt faint, and realized it was a tungsten-based alloy, and I just knew I needed it. Tungsten is so hard to get. Hatsum seemed to be rambling, and I suddenly understood how people felt when talking to me after I start mumbling about quirks. I suddenly feel bad. Her rambling was probably helping distract her from the pole in her arm, so I just sat down in the sand and listened, keeping my eye on her to make sure nothing happened. So far, it seemed she was in pain, from the sweat gathered on her brow and the uncomfortable look on her face, but she was hiding it well. I don't know how long I just sat there, listening to this girl ramble on about her babies, which I quickly realized were her inventions. Eventually, the ambulance showed up. They attempted to break the metal pipe but found that hard. Luckily, one of them had a quirk that let them cut things down to the molecular level, and they broke the pipe off at the shoulder and brought the girl onto a stretcher. As they carried her away, she lifted her head slightly and waved with her good arm. It was nice talking to you, Midoku. I hope to see you again sometime. And my face went blood red at the sudden nickname. Maybe she just forgot my name. I lightly waved back, extremely confused at the whole matter. The medics asked me some questions. Why were you here? Why was she here? Did you know her? What was her condition when you arrived at the scene? And I answered to my best ability. I really hope that girl will be okay. After I answered her questions, I decided to go home, deciding that was as eventful of a day as I could handle. Hopefully, Mom won't question why I have some blood on my pants. A deep rumble, the cold embrace of slumber slowly being disturbed. There is something out there, something familiar, something old. Ancient, a child, no, grandchild, great-grandchild. Yes, great-grandchild, one of his, traitor, all of them traitors, abandon me. It is dark. Cold, lonely, even my wards left me. Nobody, nothing but my pets. My family, left to me by my brothers. Cousins, sons, daughters, were they even family? I don't remember, so cold, so dark, so alone. This child she's returned. Weak, pathetic, easy to exterminate. Revenge, I must have my revenge. I shall, I'm tired. I think I'll take a nap first. So cold, so lonely, what's this? A child, precious to her, kill it. Kill it, kill it, kill it. Eradicate them both. Go, go, beloved children of mine, do mother's bidding. Don't betray your mother. Yes, good, my sweet little birds. Multiple small-scale earthquakes rocked the southern coast of Japan last evening, along with one large-scale that shook the entire nation early this morning. Fissures actually being opened along the streets of Chiba, some residents actually claiming there was fire spewing from them. However, after investigations were made by some local pro-heroes, it was discovered that a small gas line had been ruptured and that there was nothing else going on. On other news, All Might has recently been sighted far away from his agency in Tokyo. The TV was turned off by Mom as I laid shirtless on the couch, Lady Artemis laying on my back. It has been a week since I saw that Hatsum girl, and I am getting my first status update. Okay, Izuku. There's a large chance that you may not get much of an increase, and if there isn't, I'm afraid leveling up will be very difficult for you. Lady Artemis said, dropping some ichor from her finger, my back igniting with blue lights and words in a language I couldn't understand, as I craned my neck around to try to get a glimpse of the process. Why do you say that, Lady Artemis? I asked, a pit forming in my stomach. Does that mean I can't actually get stronger? Lady Artemis must have heard my thoughts, as she replied. Don't worry, Izuku, you're still able to get stronger, and you're already stronger than your average human just from your fauna alone. However, how you level up your fauna is by gathering Exilia, which I explained as experience. You don't get much Exilia just from training. Oh. What is? It seems I was wrong. You have gathered quite a lot of Exilia from cleaning up that beach. I wonder why. Oh, you got a new skill. Ireki Paremvasi. Quickened growth as long as desire remains in place. Growth quickens with greater desire. Comes with a side effect of increased resistance to fear and adversity. The desire must be your desire to be a hero. This is great. Lady Artemis grabbed the sheet of paper Mom supplied and copied my status onto it once again before hopping off my back and handing it to me. Let's see. Izuku Midoriya. LV1. SDR I-77, right arrow H-102. VIT I-13 right arrow, I-33. Dex I-93 right arrow H-103. AGI I-148 right arrow H-172. Mag I right arrow I. Magic. Skill, Argonaut. Ilios Passion. Irikiparimvasi. It is strange, though, Lady Artemis mumbled. What is? Most people don't develop any skills level 1, yet you have 3. It's unusual. I wonder what makes you different. Lady Artemis trailed off before shrugging and smiling towards me gently. It doesn't matter as long as my child is getting stronger. Inko huffed. He's my child, she pouted, and Lady Artemis giggled. You know what I mean, Inko. Mom smiled and giggled with her, and I just sighed. This is my life now. Artemis never did explain to me what the other skills I had did. Lady Artemis, what do Argonaut and Ilios Passion do? You never explained those two. Lady Artemis looked surprised at herself. I didn't. Well, Argonaut is actually something I'm familiar with, as someone I knew had the same skill. Lady Artemis looked a bit sad when she said someone she knew had the same skill. It allows you to charge a counterattack for adversity. It requires 4 minutes for a full charge and can sound like a small chime or a grand bell depending on the power needed. Essentially, it will give you to power to be the hero in face of overwhelming odds. That sounds amazing. Always having the power to save people sounds like a dream come true. What about Ilios Passion? I gushed at the idea of having the ability to save anyone, though I knew that realistically I couldn't save everyone. Ilios Passion, well, your agility is slightly raised and temporarily gives you the development ability escape when being chased. What's a development ability? And the two of us discussed skills and development abilities for quite a while, the topic eventually straying to quirks. I gushed a lot. It was kind of embarrassing. After a rousing discussion about developmental abilities, skills, magic, and quirks, I felt invigorated. Izuku was such a smart child. I was really lucky he was the first mortal I met in this world. It had changed quite a bit since I was here a new millennia ago. Ancient Greece and Rome had none of these innovations. It was shocking to know that many people in this world don't believe the gods exist, and even more so that the Greek pantheon was considered a myth in general. The last week I have spent with the Midoriya family has been enlightening. I learned that I shouldn't introduce myself as a goddess, as it was no longer common for gods to casually be around mortals. Inko was especially helpful, becoming a sort of kindred spirit. She had been tutoring me on the common norms of this new modern society. She has also introduced me to the currency of this country. Truly, she has been a godsend in a matter of speaking. I have been consulting her on possible jobs I could apply for. I felt bad mooching off of her family, and as a goddess, I was used to providing for my family. Izuku is a child of my familia, and Inko is his mother. They are my family now. Inko recommended that I look into becoming a nurse with her, and it does sound appealing. However, I don't exist in this world, so any background checks would come up empty. That would raise a lot of questions. I brought this up with her, and she agreed. She recommended that I try to become a citizen of Japan. She contacted her husband, who runs a major support company in America, and explained the situation, who agreed to help me set up a background. He apparently has a lot of connections in Japan and was overjoyed to hear that I had helped his son get closer to his dream of being a hero. He also said that he wanted to meet me in person and will be coming back to Japan next month. Izuku continued to work at the beach, and I continued to update his status. After about 2 weeks, he came in with the most confused smile and soot covering his face. I couldn't help but laugh and ask. A while ago, he met a girl who is a bit eccentric, and she asked to help him clean the beach, specifically so she could find materials for her inventions. He had been dragged to her house earlier that day and quickly learned she built using the power of failure expiration. Inko overheard. We insisted she come over. It was fun. I'm glad I met this family. Inko's husband is going to be back tomorrow. He'll be staying for a week before he has to go back to America. We meet Izuku's friend the day after he shows up. Inko told her husband about her. He's looking forward to teasing his son. Dad is coming home today for the first time in nearly 5 years. To be honest, I am very excited to see him. He has always supported my aspirations to be a hero, and he would call regularly, often FaceTiming us. So it's not like I grew up without my father. He has been one of my pillars in my life. With the blessing given to me by Goddess Artemis, I can finally believe his words that I can become a hero. Dad owns a famous support pharmaceutical company in America, which is why he isn't home very often, and his quirk is fire-breathing. He is a kind man, a fan of All Might just like I was. At least, until I told him what All Might told me that day. Now he's always joking about lighting his balls on fire. I love my dad. He coughs a lot and his voice is kind of ragged. He has scarring in his lungs from the smoke inhalation of his own smoke. Right now, Artemis, Mom, and I are waiting for Dad to get off the plane from America, waiting for him in the airport. There are dozens of people around, many of them being the press. When I said my dad was famous, I wasn't joking. He successfully developed a treatment to modify individuals' quirk factors to better suit their bodies. He apparently made it for my grandma, whose quirk was pulling individual molecules, but it was always passively on and created radiation around her and would slowly decay objects around her. Because of the radiation poisoning, she died when she was only in her 40s. I never got to meet her. Mom would tell me some stories about her when she was younger and even showed me a picture of her. She was very pretty, if a bit gaunt. She had a brother, but they drifted away from our side of the family a while ago. Hisashi. Mom calling out snapped me out of my thoughts, and my head jerked towards the elevator that led to the landing gates. Exiting the elevator was my dad, who was already prepared to catch Mom, who flung herself like she was a love-struck teenager all over again. A grin slipped onto my face as I approached, the paparazzi being held back by 2 men in black suits, allowing our family to reunite. I approached my laughing parents at a brisk pace, Artemis straying a bit further behind to give us some privacy. "Hey, Dad," I said as I gave him a hug, my eyes watering with happy tears. Dad chuckled and hugged me back, ruffling my hair. Dad looks a lot like an older version of me, or rather I look like a younger version of him. He has the same freckles as me and the same unruly hairstyle, though his hair is a solid black. He's 511 and is solidly built from his hours working on support items. Right now, he's clad in a black business suit, but I'm told I get my bad sense of fashion from him. Dad and I disagree, our fashion is phenomenal. He has a jagged scar lining his left cheek, going from the bottom of his chin to his cheekbone. He's quite impressive, and he easily lifts Mom in his arms and kisses her. I look away, sticking my tongue out, though the smile wouldn't leave my face. "I missed you guys," Dad's gruff voice mumbled into Mom's hair as he set her down before they grabbed each other's hands and smiled. It always touched my heart to see the love between my parents. Artemis stepped forward, putting out her hand with a polite smile. "Ah, you must be Artemis, right? It's a pleasure to meet you. We can get to know each other back at the house. The paparazzi is kind of stifling." Dad grinned and shook her hand. Artemis let out a melodic laugh. "Yeah, I'm not used to so many people." And with that, the 4 of us strolled out of the airport and got in a car to the train station. It was rented by my dad so we could come to see him land in Tokyo. We were driven over, but now Dad is driving. The traffic is bad as usual, so we had plenty of time to catch up. "So, Dad, any new innovations or support gear?" Dad glanced in the mirror back at me and smirked. "Well, yes, actually. I've recently had to create a specialized medication for someone whose quirk let them breathe in carbon dioxide at the price of not being able to process oxygen. They've been on breathing tubes for most of their life, and I offered to help. I successfully modified their quirk gene to be able to process oxygen, and for the first time in the boy's life, he can go outside without needing a machine." Dad had a proud, happy grin on his face, and I couldn't help but grin myself, pride in my father's job filling my chest. The rest of the trip was essentially lighthearted talking similar to that, smiles on everyone's faces. Dad eventually dragged Artemis into the conversations too, and they got to know each other. Eventually, Artemis, Mom, Dad, and I were all laughing together. It was a great day. We got home around 4, and Mom started to cook dinner. Dad and I were debating the possibilities of intergalactic space travel, with Dad saying it would be easy, especially with quirks involved, and I asked where we would go and how long it would take. Eventually, however, Dad asked to speak to Artemis and Mom. Alone. I shrugged and nodded, figuring it was about the blessing or something, and went to my room. I checked my phone for the first time that day and say that Hatsum had texted me. Pink machine? Yo, green bean. Did you know that crossing the wire to your fuel tank and the combustion engine is a bad idea? How was your day? This text was followed by a picture of Hatsum grinning like a crazed person, soot covering her face, and a burning machine in the backdrop. I immediately texted back. Broccoli boy, Hatsum, are you okay? I told you to be more careful with this. My day was good. I got to see my dad in person for the first time in 5 years. His name is Hisashi BTW. Pink machine is typing. Pink machine is typing. Pink machine is typing. Pink machine? What? Your dad is HISASHIMIDORIYA. Like the same HISASHIMIDORIYATHATOWNS, America's largest support company and leading research into quirk theory. That HISASHIMIDORIYA, I have to meet him ASAP. I have so many questions. KJAFGKJHAJKJS. Broccoli boy? Yeah, that's him. Meanwhile, I was smirking like an asshole, completely out of character for myself, but it was very rare I got to troll people like this. Pink machine has changed Broccoli boy to the offspring. The offspring? Excuse me. Pink machine, you are his progeny, the creation of the science man himself. The offspring? What? The two of us continued to text late into the evening, Hatsum declaring her excitement to meet my dad tomorrow when she visits for the first time. I was reminded of the time I met her for the second time. You know, after she had healed. Flashback. I had been working on the beach for a few hours already, and I wiped a bead of sweat from my forehead as I continued to drag a big-ass piece of metal behind me. I tossed it up into the dumpster and was walking back to the trash heap. Hey, bush boy. A loud yell startled me, and I yelped, jumping a foot into the air, and I turned to see the girl I had saved the week prior. She was standing there with a mechanic's jacket strapped around her waist, wearing grease-stained jeans and a black tank top that hugged her from a bit too well. She was grinning at him, her steampunk-esque goggles resting on her forehead and a hand on her hip. She stuck her other hand out. May Hatsum, thanks for helping me out last week. I want to make babies with you. At this, my mind blanked and I nearly fainted then and there. Then I remembered her babies were her inventions. Us. Was all my mind could come up with in response. Great, let's get to work. And thus, the very pretty girl grabbed my hand, dragged me towards the trash pile, and started to rummage around like a pink-haired gremlin looking for scraps. Which she was. I noticed her grab at a piece of metal that was a load-bearing piece and tug on it. Wait, that will cause a lot of things to collapse if you pull it. I yelled as I grabbed her hand and jerked it off the thing. She turned towards me, looked at the metal again before nodding, her demeanor stiffening slightly. Oh, yeah, oops. I sighed, my exasperation and concern for her safely winning against my anxiety at a very pretty girl. Okay, I think you and I need to talk, Hatsum. I was completely ignored as she went right back to looking for scraps, being a bit more careful. Hatsum. She jumped a bit. You were saying something green. Yes, W, why are you here? I stuttered out. Oh, I need materials to make my babies, I thought I told you that. No, I mean, why do you want my help? Oh, because. Yep. I let out a sigh again, before conceding and continuing to clean up the beach with Hatsum at my side, occasionally having some scrap claimed by her or me, having to drop everything to stop her from being reckless in a panic. Flashback. After that, the two of us bonded over the rest of the week, and I realized she didn't have many friends. She is very passionate about her babies and scarily intelligent, despite her ditzy personality. We became friends quickly, and despite me occasionally stuttering around her, I found her to be a very nice friend. One of my only friends actually, but that's mutual. It's nice to have a friend. Even if that friend is an eccentric mad scientist. Whatever so is my dad. She recently discovered my notebooks on quirk theory too and has been harassing me on that. God, it's so embarrassing. When Hisashi asked to speak to Inko and me alone, I can honestly say I had no idea what to expect. But even this was a bit out there. Hisashi had me sit down across from him, Inko leaning into his side and crossed his arms, looking me dead in the eyes. We stared at each other, and as I was about to speak up, he cut off any words I could have said. Have you ever heard of a man called All for One? His voice was quiet, serious, and lacked any of the warmth he had on the way over. I gulped. Whoever this All for One character was, he had to be serious. So I answered honestly. No, I haven't. Who is he? I inquired, curious as to what had a man such as him so nervous. He was nervous too. You could see it in his hands, which were shaking almost imperceptibly, or the clenching of his teeth and the bead of sweat on his forehead. Actually, he looked frightened, and that scared me more than anything. In the short few hours I had known this man, he didn't seem to fear much of anything and always was composed. That man is my former employer. When I was much younger, more naive, more desperate. He is the boogeyman, the monster in the dark, and the symbol of evil. He is the most dangerous man alive. Or at least he was. As far as I know, All Might took care of him 5 years prior. It's part of the reason I used to respect him so much. I still do, to an extent. Hisashi ran a hand over his face, fingers lightly caressing the jagged scar lining his cheek. What exactly made him so powerful? What made this man the boogeyman? His quirk was part of his legend. It was his quirk that earned him the moniker All for One. His quirk allowed him to give and take other quirks, but he was also ruthless, cruel, sadistic, manipulative, and charismatic. And you worked for him? Why? I was concerned that this man, who seemed so kind, could have possibly worked for such a horrid person. It just didn't match his disposition. Hisashi was silent for a moment. My mother overdosed when I was a young teen, and I ended up in the streets, eventually being taken in for my ingenuity with machines and quirk analysis. I would make weapons from scrap and support equipment for the gang that took me in. Eventually, the gang caught the attention of a bigger fish, All for One. He took me in, recognizing my intelligence, and offered me a quirk in return for me working for him. You see, I was quirkless like Izuku was. He provided me with all I could have asked for. Research material, resources, and education. All I had to do was make sure my studies on engineering, biology, and quirk theory benefited him. Then he met me. Then I met Inko. The two of them smiled at each other, and my heart clenched at the love in their eyes, reminding me of Orion. Inko squeezed Hisashi's hand, and he took another deep breath. My world changed, and I fell hard. I wanted to do everything I could for her and started to drift away from All for One. I eventually discovered her mother's symptoms, and I worked on a drug to cure her of her own quirk's affliction. I succeeded. I created a drug that modified her quirk factor to allow her to toggle her quirk to finally remove the radiation emitting around her. His voice hitched in anger and frustration. Then he took my research and bastardized it. He yelled, Inko immediately shushing him and calming him down, whispering soothing things to him. He took a few moments, unclenching his fists and exhaling. He bastardized my research, the quirk drug I designed to help, and instead turned it into a steroid. I created the baseline for Trigger, one of the worst drugs on the black market to this date. When I discovered what All for One had done, that was the last straw for me, and I gave an anonymous tip to some heroes on many of his major bases, which were later taken down by All Might. I then started my own support company, working to clear my name. I created pharmaceuticals to save people to try to counterbalance the lives I ruined with triggers. Inko and I got married, moved to America, had Izuku, and then we moved back here. Hisashi sighed. When Izuku was around 6, Hisashi told me All for One was catching onto our location, so he went back to America to protect us. He was gone for 5 years before we saw him again in person. Back, when he heard of All for One's defeat at All Might's hands, through some of his old colleagues who also cleaned up their acts. Inko chimed in as Hisashi tried to compose himself. The reason I brought this up, Artemis, is because of the fact you gave my son something similar to a quirk. You did something that, as far as I knew, could only be done by a supervillain. So I needed to make sure you were genuine. I needed to protect my family. I was shocked. This whole thing was a lot. I never knew there was someone like that, and I was deeply touched by the anguish in Hisashi's voice when he spoke of his inadvertent role in creating Trigger. This is a good man who was dealt a bad hand in life and did the best he could. I felt my respect for him go up. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry you went through that, Hisashi. I truly am. I promise you, I would never hurt Izuku or Inko or anyone in this family. I care for Izuku. He is a child in my familia. He is my family. That makes you all my family too. I appreciate that. Hisashi shook his head and grinned, attempting to throw off the heavy atmosphere. Come on, let's get dinner started. Earlier last night, there was an attack by a mysterious assailant on a group of students. Luckily, no one was harmed, however. This is the third incident by the same group of villains attacking people in the last month. They appear to be a winged woman with razor-sharp bird claws instead of feet. If you see someone matching this description, please notify the police as soon as possible. The television was shut off by a pale Artemis. I turned towards her, my eyebrows furrowed in confusion. I fell asleep texting Hatsum last night, and when I woke up this morning, I decided to watch the news. Artemis looked spooked when they showed some pictures of the villains. They looked like they all had the same quirk. Goddess Artemis, are you all right? I asked, concerned. She looked at me, shook her head, and smiled. I'm perfectly all right. I just thought, well, never mind. How'd you sleep, Izuku? She asked. I shrugged and said I slept fine before sitting at the table for breakfast, which Mom was cooking. Dad was already at the table, tinkering at what looked like a small Swiss Army knife. Watcha doin'? I asked. Dad looked up at me and grinned, flipping the knife over in his hands and clicking a previously unseen button. V-woom. Out came a small plasma blade from the end. He then rotated the button, and the plasma blade turned into a Phillips head screwdriver. Another rotation had it into a flat screwdriver, another lead to a corkscrew, and so on. It's a Swiss Army knife, he said cheekily. I rolled my eyes with a smile. Okay. I created an artificial copy of a quirk I once saw. They were able to create almost anything out of a force field. I studied the energy, with their permission of course, and now I can successfully generate it myself. Sadly, it's only on a small scale like this, but imagine the possibilities. He gushed excitedly, and I laughed with him. The two of us dissolved into quirk theory fanboying, at least that's what Mom would call it. We were interrupted by our doorbell. Oh, that must be Hatsum. Be right back, Dad. I went to the entrance of our home and opened the door. Standing in all her grease-stained glory was the pink machine herself. She was wearing something a bit different than her normal grease monkey outfit, though. Instead of a tank top and old pants, she was wearing a button-down white blouse with the ends of the sleeves cuffed up around her mid-bicep. She had her mechanic's jacket tied around a pair of shorts with her usual steampunk goggles lying on her forehead. Her usual boots rested on her feet. She looked like she took the time to pick out clean clothes, and she shuffled slightly nervously in the doorway before she saw me and grinned. Hey, Green Bean, miss me? I snorted and grinned right back, nervously stepping to the side to let her in. Sure, Hatsum. Welcome to my humble abode. The two of us meandered back into the house where Mom, Dad, and Artemis were still around the table. Mom was still cooking, and she turned her head to look over her shoulder at us. You must be Hatsum. Have you had breakfast? No. Then sit and eat with us. It'll be done in just a minute. Hatsum shrugged and sat down at the table, finally noticing my father, who was still tinkering away. I braced myself. Izuku, is that your dad? Is that Hisashi Midoriya? Is that the creator of Green Tech Labs? Hatsum turned to me excitedly and immediately began to gush. My dad looked up and chuckled. I guess you're a fan. I was inspired to be an inventor and support technician by you, sir. The sir shocked me. I have never heard Hatsum use any form of manners. Your combination of quirk theory, biology, and engineering to create both pharmaceuticals and support gear that work with the quirk in question is inspiring. I am a fan of everything you've done. She gushed even more, and I couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Hatsum turned to me. Is he the reason you're so good at quirk theory and analysis? Before I could answer, my dad spoke up. Actually, no, I'm not. That's all done by him. I would tutor him very rarely. All his notebooks were created by him, and solely him. His research was all him. I guess he was also inspired by me. He chucked to himself, and I ducked even lower in my seat, my face bright red from embarrassment. Hatsum had stars in her eyes, almost literally considering her quirk. Artemis was just sitting quietly, smiling. I coughed. Right so, Hatsum, this is God Artemis. I cut myself off from calling her goddess like I usually do, and my dad, who you already know, is Hisashi Midoriya. My mom's name is Inko Midoriya. Family, this is Mei Hatsum. She's my friend who's been helping me clean the beach. How's that been going, by the way? Artemis asked, quirking an eyebrow. I haven't had a status update since the first one when we discussed skills and quirks, so I don't know how far I've grown, and neither has she. Now that I have the blessing, my physical growth doesn't show physically until I get an update, my body storing the excelia I generate from working. Normally, I would need to slay monsters to gain excelia, but the skill I have, Ireki Paremvasi, allows me to generate excelia when I do heroic deeds or work towards it. Artemis assumes that is the reason my cleaning of the beach raised my status. She also assumes the reason I gained it in the first place is that there hasn't been a dungeon in the world for centuries, not since she left with the rest of the gods. I might ask for a status update later. Well, Artemis broke me from my thoughts, and I realized I zoned out, mumbling to myself again. Hatsum was looking at me curiously, and I gulped. Did she understand my mumbling? What's a blessing? Or excelia, Ireki Paremvasi? Well, that confirms it. Somehow, the only other person in the world that could understand my mumbling other than my dad was the cute girl next to me. So attempting to explain something to Mei Hatsum you can't tell her something is impossible, especially as she heard pretty much everything I mumbled. My question is how, or rather, when exactly did she learn how? Well, I learned 'cause I figured you had so many great ideas in your head and I wanted to hear them. Oh, I was mumbling. Yep. Damn. I let out a sigh, Artemis looking at me with amusement. Mom was slightly panicking, and Dad was oblivious, working on his Swiss Army knife. Okay, Artemis, why aren't you panicking? I asked. She just let out a small laugh. Well, a familia isn't much of a familia if it only has one member. I fully intended to try to expand it a little. I miss having a large familia. Her voice choked up slightly, and I winced. I still don't know what she went through before arriving here, but I can gather the gist of it. I think she lost her last familia and her lover. When she came here, or maybe they were already dead. I attempted to just avoid the subject. I realized it caused her pain. So, what's a familia anyways, lady? I sighed once again. Mom stopped panicking slightly and placed some breakfast in front of us, and Goddess Artemis just smiled. Well, do you believe in the Greek pantheon, or rather any pantheon? Hatsum paused for a second, tapping a finger against her chin. Nope, is that important? It is, Hatsum. You see, I am the goddess Artemis of the Greek pantheon. The blessing that you overheard is something I can bestow upon people for them to gain the ability to level up and advance themselves through experience, or excelia. Goddess Artemis, are you? Yes, Izuku, I am. Mei Hatsum, I would like to give you this blessing. Wait, you barely have met her. Are you sure you want to give her a blessing so soon, or at all? Mom exclaimed. My wife is right. If you give her the blessing, that only increases the likelihood that someone is bound to find out about you. In this world, that could be very dangerous, especially if he finds out. Dad and Mom shared a meaningful glance. I wondered who Dad could be referring to, but jumped my attention back to the conversation at hand. Izuku, do you trust Hatsum? I pondered that question for a moment. Hatsum and I have only known each other for a short while, but in that time I believe we have become quite good friends. I have learned that she is a smart, offsetting, assertive girl who often makes people uncomfortable. but she is also very opportunistic when talking about her babies and doesn't seem to fear failure. She is probably just as motivated, if not more so, to improve herself. She is very kind, too. Yes. I do, Goddess Artemis. I leave the decision to you and Hatsum. I feel a little left out here. Hatsum complained. I snorted. That's Hatsum for you. Well, Hatsum, my familia needs a smith, and I would like to offer the blessing to you. Okay, let's do it. What do I have to do? That was quick. Hatsum's normal, boisterous, and excitable attitude seemed to still for a moment, her constant smile dulling. Well, I strive to always improve myself, and from what I've heard, this is a way for me to do that. Maybe I'll be able to make even better babies, maybe not. But I don't see a downside to this. I get to improve myself either way, right? I was speechless. Hatsum doesn't show this side of her often, the side of an ostracized girl not used to people just accepting her, quirks and all, personality quirks. I have also learned that Hatsum is a bit lonely. I guess that's why I'm so ready to accept her into the familia. I can only assume Goddess Artemis can feel the same thing. She has a knack for that, must be a goddess thing. Okay, follow me then. Izuku, you may want to avoid watching. What is Goddess talking about, oh? Oh right, yeah, I'm going to my room to give them some privacy. Now that I think about it, Dad should too. Come on, Dad, explain to me how the force field plasma thing works. I dragged him off. After Hatsum received her blessing, we were called back in. Hatsum was sitting on the edge of the couch, dangling her feet as she read over a piece of paper, which I assumed was her status. I walked over and peered over her shoulder to look at it myself. May Hatsum. LV1. SDR I right arrow, I-77. VIT I right arrow, I-64. Dex I right arrow, I-67. AGI I-10 right arrow, I-34. Mag I right arrow, I. Magic. Skill, Blacksmith I. Goddess Artemis, didn't you say it was unusual for people to have skills at level 1, that I was a unique case? I asked, curious. Artemis nodded, looking unusually concerned. You'd be correct, it is unusual. I believe that the blessing has changed somehow. I think it has to do with the fact that we are the only familia left on this planet, and so the blessing is reacting in kind. Blacksmith is a developmental skill that is only supposed to appear in level 2 blacksmiths. Hatsum, you said you're an inventor, right? Hatsum nodded, looking over at Artemis curiously. Blacksmith is an ability that allows the user to add special abilities to their creations. So, your inventions will be unique in that sense. Unlike normal skills, Hatsum, developmental skills can be leveled up similar to your stats, but they take much longer to and don't reset upon level up. Hatsum nodded, before grinning widely. Does that mean my babies will be even better? Artemis laughed and nodded. Hatsum did a happy little wiggle in her spot, hopping up and going to get her stuff, a wild look in her eyes. Hatsum, where are you going? I stood up to follow her. She turned to me, giggling madly, and I stepped back, sweat building on my forehead. I have to test this out. Babies must be made. Then she ran out the door. The house was silent for a moment before I quickly ran out after her. Wait for me. It looks like we'll be spending the day elsewhere. Likely at her workshop, where she often drags me to help. Welp, sorry, Mom. It was a good breakfast, though. I quickly caught up to Hatsum, and we continued on our way to the beach, where she grabbed some junk she had set aside yesterday, and we continued on her way. Hatsum didn't live far from the beach, or rather her workshop wasn't far from it. I felt kind of bad for ditching my family, but Hatsum must want to test out her new blacksmith skill. Not that I thought about it, I haven't looked into any of my skills either. How am I supposed to test those? According to Artemis, Argonaut only appears in the face of adversity, so I can't test that one. Elio's passion is a passive ability most of the time, only giving me escape if I'm being chased. Oh. Well, now I know how I got that specific skill. Hatsum and I eventually arrived at her workshop, and she turned towards me with a glint in her eye, one that I recognized. She's fired up and ready to get to inventing. The junk she pulled from the beach was laid out on the workbench, and she went to her furnace and started to heat it. Immediately, the flames burst to life, and Hatsum grabbed a smock, putting the metal she grabbed from the beach into a crucible and putting it into the furnace. I could faintly hear her mumbling to herself, "It's spreading." Okay, a steel alloy with 11% chromium, iron, nickel, molybdenum, and carbon. A combination of blue super and 8670 steel alloys. Honestly, the quality that Beach has in metal always surprises me. Heating up to 1500 Celsius, thank you, Mom, for the new furnace. I honestly barely understood any of what she was talking about, but I just sat back and let her do her thing. As the metal was heating, Hatsum's eyes seemed to glaze over and she walked over to her steel cabinet where she had other materials and pulled out something. I walked over and peered over her shoulder. Is that a gem? Emerald. I shrugged as Hatsum pulled the heated metal out of the furnace, carefully balancing the crucible with experienced precision, and she poured it into a cast that shaped the metal from its twisted and bent bar that it used to be into a solid steel bar about 20 centimeters long and half a centimeter thick. The emerald Hatsum had grabbed earlier was placed under a hydraulic press, where she promptly crushed it into dust. Honestly, that must have been expensive, but at this point, I've learned to just go with it. Hatsum scooped the gem dust into her hand and set it aside. The metal was cool enough that it was only a reddish-orange instead of the fiery yellow it was a minute ago. Hatsum pulled the metal out of the cast and began to hammer away at it, heating it occasionally. Soon, it began to take on the shape of a dagger, and honestly, I kind of just zoned out as I watched her work. Honestly, she's very impressive. When she gets into the zone like this, it's like she is completely different. Nothing else matters except what she is working on at that moment, and it's kind of mesmerizing. I've seen my dad do the same thing sometimes, and it always impresses me. Eventually, the dagger was shaped the way Hatsum wished, and she began to grind it down. I would wonder why she knows how to make a dagger like some sort of old blacksmith, but I remembered that there are quite a few heroes who request custom blades and other types of weapons, so I'm not that surprised. The dagger's spine curved inwards before it curved back to where it's evened out, giving it a sort of elvish appearance. It was a steel gray, and after Hatsum polished it, it shined. Finally, it seemed down. Then Hatsum grabbed a tool I didn't recognize, and I only realized its purpose once she began to engrave into the side of the blade. Whatever she carved was mirrored on the other side, giving it a perfectly symmetrical appearance. It looked like a cool design, and it matched up with the rest of the blade perfectly. Hatsum grabbed the emerald dust, and I heard her mumble under her breath once again. Emerald, eternity. She then poured the emerald onto the blade, and it seemed to glow green for a split second. The steel gray color was now tinted green, and the glow of the blade faded, though the designs she carved into it were now a solid green color, just like the emerald had been. If I didn't know better, I would have said emerald was built into the blade. She took a breath and stepped back. Wow, that was different. She said breathily, "What do you mean? I noticed the whole glowy thing, but what happened?" I dunno, I just felt compelled into doing that. Hatsum's eyebrows furrowed, and she picked up the dagger and wrapped the tang in some strips of leather before holding it out to me. It's going to need a proper handle made, but I'll just have it 3D printed out. I made that for you, by the way. She gestured for me to take it, holding it by the blade with the handle towards me. I smiled and grabbed it from her. It was wonderfully weighted in my hand. At least, it felt like it was. I knew nothing about daggers. I'm going to need to learn to use this, huh? I mumbled. The inscribed designs on the side glowed a bit with it in my hand, and I felt a rush go through me. I don't know how I know this. I think the skill gave me some specific knowledge around the whole unique features to things I create, but the emerald I infused into the blade increases the blade's sharpness. It will never rust, and if it ever chips, it will repair itself. Eternal. It matches your hair. I let out a snort. Thanks, Hatsum. I appreciate it. Though I'm going to need to get this registered, I can't use it for the exam otherwise. Hatsum shrugged and skipped over to me, much calmer now that she's tested out her new skill. Sometimes I think she's similar to a junkie. She's wired until she has her fix. In this case, her fix is inventing, or apparently weapon forging. Whatever. So now that I know it works, I have so many babies to make. She giggled and promptly went back to scrambling around her workshop. I sighed. Never mind, she's not done yet. Occasionally, I'd be recruited to help her, either by handing her a tool or getting her some water. Or rather, I'd choose to get her water. Hatsum forgets to take breaks and take care of herself when she's like this. I guess I'm babysitting. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share, and do comments. Well, Hatsum is a goblin. It's official. When I walked into the shop where she was working, I wasn't expecting, despite knowing better, for me to get blown back from an explosion. Ever since she discovered that she can imbue special effects into her creations, which she insisted wasn't enchanting, but just using the raw material's natural magical effects, she's been experimenting. And Hatsum experimenting leads to explosions. As for the weapon she made me. Apparently in many cultures, emeralds are used to represent eternity, typically in wedding rings. Hatsum said that the first time she made something with her blacksmith skill, she didn't know what she was doing or how it worked. It was like there was a constant itching on her back that was leading her in a specific direction. Now, though, she has figured out generally how it works and is having a blast. I talked with Goddess Artemis about it, and she looked just as confused as I did about it. She said that the blessing is pseudo-intelligent and adapts based on the user. She confesses that, despite being a goddess, she still doesn't know everything about it, as she didn't make the blessing system. That was apparently Orano's. She thinks that, because of the lack of knowledge and the lack of other blessings in the world, it's trying to compensate by providing the necessary tools. She explains that it's likely where I got my skill Iriki Paremvasi, which grants Excelia without having to fight monsters, as there doesn't seem to be many instances of them in this world. She also says that, due to the lack of Excelia available, level-ups will be harder, so it grants skills earlier than it normally would. She stressed that this was all conjecture, though, but it's the best we've got so far. She did seem worried about something, though, which in turn worried me. Anyway, back to the mess that is Hatsum Mei, and the fact that she is lying on my chest and we're both covered in soot. Hatsum, please get off. I mumbled, bright red. The girl giggled and got up, pulling me up with her and brushing both of us off. Sorry about that. I guess attempting to infuse the power of explosions into a weapon is harder than it sounds. That sounds pretty hard, though. I pointed out, disturbed. She just jerked around in excitement. Yep. I shook my head in fond confusion before following her in. Her workshop was a mess, covered in random spare parts, wires, circuits, and small, misshapen masses of metal. I had to dodge around, tiptoeing around the dangerous materials. I spotted something out of the corner of my eye. A label, sodium metal, except it was empty. There was a suspicious-looking chunk of metal next to it. Hatsum, please tell me you're not keeping sodium metal out in the open. Even I knew how reactive it was. However, instead of looking sheepish, Hatsum just whirls around and rushes towards it. That's where I left you. It was at that moment I felt a little bit of my soul dissipate. After Hatsum got a little cleaned up, we ended up just chatting together as she worked. She'd have me bring her heavy objects as a part of my training, only to pick them up like they're nothing. Still astounds me that she is secretly ripped under all that goblinness. Absolute gremlin. She's awesome, though. The blessing only made it worse, giving her already incredible nature strength a small boost. She's now about as strong as someone with a lesser strength quirk. As for myself, my blessing has been showing signs of stagnating. It seems my skill decided that I had earned enough Excelia from working on the beach, so while my body doesn't quite match what I'm actually capable of yet. I also haven't gotten any magic yet, which is kind of upsetting, but understandable. Izuku Midoriya. LV1. SDRG 202. VITH 133. Dex G 203. AGIG 272. Magi. Magic. Skill, Argonaut. Ilios Passion. Iriki Paremvasi. Suddenly, there's a shaking, and our conversation gets cut off as we realize there's an earthquake happening. It lasts only a few seconds, but it's intense, and multiple things shake off the shelves. I barely manage to pull Hatsum down before something explodes, shrapnel flying over us at high speeds. I gulp. She gulps. Maybe you should organize your shop a bit. Yeah. A moment passes before we start to laugh and stand up. The shop is in even more disarray. Here, let me help. The two of us worked together to clean up her shop, and by the time we were done, it was evening. I had fun. It was the first time since Kakin that I hung out with a friend. She appreciates my mumbling and can understand it. She is a bit of a spaz, but she cares. I give her a smile. I had fun, see you, Hatsum. She dashes forward and pulls me into a hug. You know, I never really had friends before Midoriya. People would call me weird and wouldn't want anything to do with me. Things would explode around me and people said I was bad luck. I'm really glad you're my friend. I hope I can be the best support engineer you could ask for. She exclaims, pulling back to look me in the eyes with a massive smile. However, I couldn't help but notice that she stuttered on the word, support. Hatsum, do you really want to be a support engineer? I asked. What are you asking? Of course I do. I mean, it's been my dream ever since I was a kid, but I guess. Yes. I want to be like Power Loader, a hero who is also a support technician, but no one thought I could. I was told, Hatsum, your quirk is too weak to be a hero, you should stick to what you're good at. Hatsum, who would want to be saved by you? You're just a weirdo, a geek, a loser. Hatsum, heroes are supposed to be cool, not freaks. Hatsum tears up a little. Hatsum, you could be a hero with me. After all, you have the blessing too, like me, and you're pretty much my only friend. She was quiet for a second. Suddenly, she started to cry, a choked hiccup ringing in my ears. She pulled me into a tight hug, and I felt my body freeze for a moment before I tentatively wrapped my arms around her. Her tears flowed into my shoulder and I rubbed her back. A moment passed, maybe longer. Eventually, though, she broke away, rubbing her tears, but not before I felt her lips brush against my cheek. Thanks, Izuku. No one's ever told me that. You're a good friend. I smiled, my face bright red, but I chose to ignore it. It was likely just a thank you, nothing more. Right. I was being honest, Hatsum. May, call me May. Okay, May, I sincerely believe that you can be a hero with me. Besides, with your Zoom quirk, you'd be a phenomenal sniper. Like that one hero, Lady Nagant. Wait, that's a bad example considering she was incarcerated. Snipe. Like Snipe. You could design your own capture weapons, your own sniper rifle. Oh wait, our patron is Artemis, goddess of the hunt. Maybe you could make a bow. We locked eyes and simultaneously we grinned, May's grin slightly more unhinged in my opinion. Explosive arrows. They cheered before laughing. After they calmed down, May frowned. But how would I even do that? I don't have the proper materials, or tools, nor lasers. You forget my dad. Wait, lasers. Izuku, marry me. You can't marry into my family, just so you can have more access to my dad. Damn it. I gave her a grin before I looked down at my non-existent watch. It's getting late, I should be getting home soon. Get some sleep, May, or I'll spike your coffee or something. You dare threaten my drink? I dare. Fine, I'll get 6 hours of sleep. 8. 6. 10. 8, wait a minute. Too late. No. With a grin, I walked out of her shop, wishing her a good night, and began my journey home, occasionally checking my phone for any recent hero news. Apparently there have been a lot of earthquakes and holy shit, apparently a massive ravine appeared in the middle of Camino Ward. It's been completely walled off by yellow tape, and multiple heroes are investigating, but apparently there's no sign of what caused it. I sighed to myself, shot a text to my mom letting her know I was on my way home, and tucked my phone back into my pocket, glancing up at the sky. It was dark now, the full moon shining brilliantly in the sky. I gave it a smile and offered a small prayer to my goddess. I felt a little warmth, and I smiled even wider. I know that because she sealed her divine powers, it was likely just a placebo effect, but regardless, I felt like Goddess Artemis was watching over me. Then I was tackled to the floor. Goddess, why must you betray me so? I felt something sharp digging deep into me, and there, standing above me, was a half-bird, half-woman, her talons buried inside my shoulder. Her eyes glowed red and her feathers were a mixture of black and red. Wait, why am I focused on that? She's attacking me. The lady gave off a loud screech. She spread her wings, and feathers shot out towards me. I barely managed to roll out of the way. She shot up into the sky in a blur of speed, and I felt my stomach drop as more razor-sharp feathers shot out. I started to run, but I collapsed as not one, not two, but 6 feathers buried themselves into my legs, arms, and back. I coughed harshly and spit out blood. I fell completely, now laying on my stomach as blood pooled around me. Is this it? Is this how I die? I flipped onto my back, the feathers digging deeper, and I stared into the full moon. I'm sorry, goddess. No, I can't die. I haven't even become a hero yet. I can't leave Hatsume alone. I refuse. I forced myself to my feet, blood running down my body, the woman screeching at me and launching more feathers. I dodged to the side, rolling. Only one feather hit, burying itself in my calf. I winced, but pulled out the knife May gave me. Its greenish-silver metal seemed to glow. No, wait, it was glowing. Bells tolled. I reared back my hand and threw. The knife sliced through the air in a beam of white light, going straight through the chest of the woman, and I felt myself panic for a second, thinking I just killed someone, before she burst into a cloud of black dust, a single stone dropping to the floor. My knife struck a wall, burying itself up to the hilt, and I felt myself sway before falling over again. Shit. Blood loss. May, I'm not too far, I just need to call May. I fumbled around and pulled out my phone, my fingers slick with red. I quickly hit her name in my contacts. Please pick up. Izuku, miss me already, huh? May, help me. Izuku, what's wrong, where are you, I'm coming. May, bleeding, healthcare, fuck, help. I remember dropping my phone, my head pounding and my vision blurring. My hand fell to the floor. I felt cold, tired, where my eyelids fluttered open, and I found myself in a dimly lit hospital room. The soft beeping of machines filled the air, and the scent of antiseptic stung my nose. I felt groggy, my body heavy, but as my senses slowly returned, I realized I was alive. Memories of the attack rushed back, and my heart rate quickened. Izuku. Mom's worried voice broke through my thoughts as she rushed to my bedside, taking my hand in hers. Tears glistened in her eyes, but they were tears of relief. Thank goddess you're awake. We were so worried. Dad, I managed to croak, my voice hoarse from disuse. Dad stood beside my mom, his expression a mix of concern and pride. You had us worried there, son, he said, gently patting my shoulder. I mustered a weak smile. Sorry, Dad. Don't be sorry, kiddo, he said with a warm smile. I'm just glad you're okay. As we shared a tender moment, the door to the hospital room creaked open and May peeked inside. Her eyes were red and puffy, a clear sign that she had been crying. When Sei saw me awake, her tears transformed into that of joy. Izuku. May rushed to my side and hugged me uncharacteristically gently, carefully avoiding jostling my injuries. You scared me, you know? I thought I had lost my partner in crime. I'm sorry, May, I said, sincerity in my voice. I could tell I had worried her greatly. I wasn't expecting to get jumped by a bird lady. You're so danger-prone, she teased, her voice tinged with relieved affection. And you're a lovable grease monkey. I retorted, grinning. Our banter brought a smile to Mom and Dad, and I saw tears welling up in Mom's eyes. Thank you, May, Mom said, her voice quivering with emotion. For being such a good friend to my son. If it wasn't for you, her voice cracked. What do you mean if it wasn't for May? May froze before turning away, her eyes lost in remembrance. I found you nearly dead, Izuku. If it wasn't for the emergency medical kit I brought with me, you would have. Tears filled her unique eyes once again, and I, painfully, pushed myself up and wrapped her in a tight embrace. You saved me. You're my hero, May Hatsume. Oh, by the way, did anyone grab my knife? Oh, right. May stepped out of my embrace and ran to her back, sitting on a nearby chair, and pulled out the blade that had saved my life, no longer glowing green. I'm glad you're okay, Izuku. Goddess Artemis walked in, smiling gently at me. She gave me a soft hug, then kissed me on the forehead. You really worried all of us, but I'm glad you're safe. Then she looked at me seriously, before looking at the rest of the people in the room. I need to ask Izuku, who attacked you? May said there wasn't anyone around, but there were sharp red feathers digging into your legs and back. Can you describe them to me? Oh, it was some kind of bird lady. At this, Goddess Artemis froze before biting her knuckle in worry. Goddess, is something wrong? I'm afraid so. What happened to your attacker? I threw my knife through her chest after it started glowing, and she burst into a puff of black smoke and left behind a stone. What does that mean? Was she rescued by another villain before I defeated her? No, Izuku, it's dead. And I do mean it. Izuku, I'm afraid I know what's causing all these earthquakes and what caused the ravine to open. Izuku, there's a dungeon reawakening. Artemis took a deep breath, her expression grave. There is a powerful entity, a goddess like myself, that stayed behind on Earth when the rest of us went to the other world to live as mortals. This goddess was named Gia. She is the last remaining god on Earth, excluding me. I fear she's waking up. As Gia is the Earth itself, she is also the dungeon of this world. What exactly is a dungeon, Goddess Artemis? A dungeon is a place of great power, filled with dangerous monsters and treasures, Artemis explained. Gia's dungeon is a source of immense strength, and I fear that she has sensed me and desires to destroy me by unleashing monsters into the world. So, the bird lady was one of those monsters. May asked, her voice quiet. Yes, exactly, a harpy to be exact. Artemis confirmed. In the other world, the dungeon's sole goal was to wipe out the gods and goddesses and to kill the mortal races of the surface. I'm afraid this dungeon, that Gia, has the same goal, and because you are marked by my blessing, you have become a target in her eyes. I swallowed hard, the weight of the situation sinking in. So, this is all because of me. No, Izuku, Goddess Artemis said firmly, placing a hand on my shoulder. This is not your fault. Gia's anger goes beyond just you. She blames all of humanity for the actions of the other gods. But now, we must find a way to stop her and seal the dungeon once more. May clenched her fists, her determination resolute. Then we need to stop her. Izuku and I won't let her destroy everything. We'll stand against her. Artemis nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude. I know you'll protect people. However, you must get stronger, and in order to do that, you must keep training. You're nowhere near strong enough to defeat a goddess, and you need more allies than just the two of you. I think I need to expand my familia. I also am going to need to talk to who's the principal of the school you plan on going to. Principal Nezu. Yes, I'll need to talk to him. If UA is like you said, it'd be a perfect place to find new members of the familia. Besides, I need to let people know about what's happening. I could get you to Nezu. Dad spoke up. I have contact with him due to many of my products, and my support company helps provide his students with their first hero costume. I'm sure he'd be willing to listen. May and I exchanged glances, a sense of hope stirring within us. The idea of expanding the familia was enticing, as it was daunting. But if it meant we could gather allies and become stronger to face Gia and her dungeon, we were willing to take on the challenge. Thank you, Dad, I said, grateful for his offer. Having Artemis talk to Principal Nezu would be a great opportunity for us, and if we can find potential familia members at UA, it'll be even better. Artemis smiled warmly. I appreciate your support, both of you. With the right allies, we can face Gia together and protect this world from the threat of her dungeon. We won't let her hurt anyone else, May declared, her resolve unwavering. Izuku and I will do whatever it takes to stop her. With a nod, Artemis turned to my parents. Thank you for raising such a brave and kind-hearted son. Izuku's determination and sense of justice are truly admirable. Mom wiped away a tear, her voice filled with pride. He's always been a special boy. I knew he would grow up to be a hero in every sense of the word. My dad chuckled, his arm around Mom's shoulders. He takes after his mother in more ways than one, and I have no doubt that he'll make us all proud. Soon, I was released from the hospital. Goddess Artemis updated my status. She also explained that the glowing on my weapon was my skill, Argonaut, Izuku Midoriya. LV1. SDR G202, right arrow G282. VITH 133, right arrow G205. Dex G203, right arrow F303. AGI G272, right arrow F353. Mag I right arrow I. Magic. Skill Argonaut. Ilios Passion. Irikipar Invasi. It was quite a substantial increase, which I attributed to my slaying of an, apparently, high-level monster. Apparently, in Goddess Artemis's world, harpies are only found past floor 18, the lower half of the middle floors. She said I was extremely lucky to have survived. May and I continued to work out, and I continued to help her build her machines. Soon, it was the day of the entrance exam. Oh man, oh man, oh man, I'm so nervous. I jittered in place. May and I were standing right outside the gates to UA, and I was attempting to psyche myself up for this. Am I ready for this? Are my stats high enough? I've registered the knife May gave me as a support weapon, so I can use that, but what if it's not enough? All the work I've done. Goddess Artemis will be so disappointed. No, I can't think like that. I smacked my cheeks and nodded, resolute. I turned to May, only for whatever words I was gonna say dying on my lips. May was in her mechanic's clothes, but what caught my eye was the bow strapped to her back. It was a Greek composite bow and had beautiful engravings carved into it. It seemed to be made out of a silver wood, but Izuku didn't spot any arrows on her body. May, where are your arrows? May turned to me, a wild grin on her face. Arrows? Who needs arrows? This baby can create arrows by compressing air and drawing on my mind. You have magic. Nope, but blacksmith lets me imbue objects with unique properties. This one just is enchanted with the ability to create arrows. Get it? Air, arrow. I facepalmed and began walking into the exam, only to be shoulder-checked as an angry Pomeranian stalked by, red eyes shooting a dark look at me. Stay in your fucking lane, Deku. Damn, someone's extra spicy today. Fuck off. Aye, Captain. I sighed and saw May glaring at Katsuki's back. I had almost completely forgotten about Katsuki the last few weeks, with a literal goddess entering my life and meeting May. It felt like he didn't really have any sway over me anymore. It was nice. I sighed to myself and made my way towards the entrance to the school. You got this, Izuku. I told myself, smiling. Then my foot hit a brick and I fell. Well, fuck me, I guess. Instincts quickly kicked in, and with my new superhuman physical abilities, I quickly turned a faceplant into a front flip. I heard a gasp and turned to see a brunette girl staring at me in shock, a hand stretched out as if to catch me. I spotted small pads on her fingers. Oh, sorry. She squeaked before she rushed off. May started to cackle and I glanced over at her, flushed. She was going to try and catch me, huh? Yep. And with that, May and I made our way into the exam room, jammed packed with hundreds of potential applicants. We were quickly handed our written exam. I twitched nervously as I had found my seat directly next to Katsuki, who huffed in annoyance. Bad doggy. We had 30 minutes to complete the written exam. It was fairly standard stuff, with a few exceptions. When I made it down to the ethics part of the exam, there was only a single question. What is a hero? I mused to myself, what is a hero? If you go with the textbook definition, it is a person who is admired or idealized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. However, it is so much more than that. In our modern age, a hero is an occupation, someone who uses their quirk for public security and to inspire peace in the populace. However, is that all it should be? That makes it feel so impersonal. A hero is someone who, at the cost of oneself, is willing to go above and beyond in protecting others, to ensure that not only are their bodies saved, but so are their hearts. A true hero must be able to look upon a criminal and emphasize, or at the very least, understand their reasoning. If a hero can do that, identify the human behind the crime, then it becomes that much easier to deal with the situation. For example, if a theft is committed, a true hero must not look at it as a criminal stealing, but the reason behind it. Are they stealing money? If so, are they doing it for good or bad reasons? Many times, heroes may be able to de-escalate a situation through words alone, and in fact should be the first response in most situations, unless another life is in the crossroads. Ultimately, a hero is someone who does their best with whatever situation is given to them and attempts to do as much good as possible, that good being the saving of lives, both in the literal sense and the metaphorical. What's the point of saving a person if everything they have ever known and cared about is gone and they no longer have any support groups? It's why some of our most revered heroes, such as All Might, don't just stop at preventing crime, but also have their own charities, their own fundraisers for victims, and do community service. A hero doesn't just enforce the letter of the law, but also its spirit. A hero saves lives, livelihoods, and happiness. I smiled and quickly finished up the rest of his test. Just in time, too, as all of the tests were being collected. Soon after, a blond man in a leather jacket strolled onto the stage, cheerfully waving at the crowd like it was a concert. I quickly recognized him as Present Mike and stifled my gut reaction to fanboy, but couldn't prevent the small squeak. "Shut up, Deku." "Bite me, Katsuki," and with that we turned back to the presentation. "What's up, UA candidates? Thanks for tuning into me. Come on and let me hear ya." Present Mike cheered, only to be met with an eerie silence. Izuku swore he heard crickets. "Keeping it mellow, huh? That's fine, I'll skip straight to the main show. Let's talk about how this practical exam is going to go down, okay? Are you ready?" "Yeah." Again, silence. Mike coughed into his hand, looking a little disheartened. "Like your application says, today you rockin' boys and girls will be out there conducting 10-minute mock battles in a super hip urban setting. Your joy, my friends, after I drop the mic here, you'll head to your specified battle center, so good luck." "I see," Katsuki mumbled to himself. "They're splitting us up so we can't work out with any of our friends." I shrugged. "Makes sense. I wonder if that means I won't be with May." "Who?" "Don't worry about it, Katsuki." "Deku, damn, I was really looking forward to crushing you." "All right, let's check out your targets. There are 3 types of foe villains in every battle center. You'll earn points based on their level of difficulty. Better choose wisely. Your goal in this trial is to use your abilities to utterly shred these villains like a mid-song guitar solo. But keep things heroic, so no sabotaging your fellow applicants." Mike said, clearly having a blast with his hero persona. I smiled. "If I may interject." A bespectacled young man stood up, a spotlight immediately shining on his seat. I wondered who exactly they had in charge of that, and why, and who are you? "I go by Iratenya, sir. On the printout, you have listed 4 types of villains, not 3. With all respect, if this is an error on official UA material, it is shameful. We are the best of the best students. We expect only the same from one of the top hero schools in Japan." He swirled around and pointed at Katsuki and I, additionally. "You two stop your pathetic squabbling, it's distracting the others. If you can't be bothered to take this seriously, then leave." Izuku tilted his head. "Damn, okay, go off, King. What the hell did I just think?" Katsuki stood up. "The only one interfering with the presentation is you. 4 eyes. Sit down." Present Mike was clearly just about to get to that. He barked. Ida faltered. 4 eyes. He mumbled before turning back to Present Mike. He bowed at a 90-degree angle, chopping his hand in the air. "I apologize, sir. Please continue." All right, examinee number 7111, thanks for calling in with your request. The 4th villain type is worth 0 points. Think of it as an obstacle to avoid. That's all I have for you today. As General Napoleon Bonaparte once said, a true hero is one who overcomes life's misfortunes. Let's hear a plus ultra. Plus ultra. And with that, I quickly changed into my workout clothes and hopped on the bus to the physical part of the exam. "This is it, Izuku. Let's make sure the effort May and I put in isn't for nothing." I drew out his emerald green knife that May had made for me and set it in my lap. The guy with glasses was a part of his exam group and spotted the knife. He made his way over from the front of the bus where he was seated and began to chop his arms at me. How disgraceful. Bringing a weapon to an exam like this, you should be ashamed. I got it registered. I'm allowed to have it. I have a friend who is bringing a bow. Not all of our quirks are inherently combat-related. So you're going to be using a knife to arrest villains. Doesn't Ed Shot use shuriken, and Snipe has an actual gun? Izuku's rebuke started Iida, and he faltered. I apologize. He seemed to deflate. I'm just a little on edge, that's all. Hey, it's okay. Everyone's a little nervous, I think. I know I am. It's okay to be nervous, you just got to power through. That's what a hero would do, right? I reassured the other guy. You're right. Good luck in the exam. Izuku Midoriya. Midoriya, good luck. He bowed at the waist again and went to sit back down. I smiled. He seemed to be an earnest guy, if a bit uptight. Soon, the bus arrived, and we all got off in front of a giant gate. It's like a whole city. How the hell do they afford this? What is their budget? I am feeling absolutely magnifique. What? I shook off the weird comment and spotted the brunette who went to catch me. I strolled over and tapped her on the shoulder, startling her. She looked super shaky. I offered a smile, swallowing the hint of nervousness from talking to a girl. May, as it would turn out, made talking to girls not seem nearly as bad, mainly because she is an absolute gremlin. You're the girl who tried to catch me, right? Thank you. Oh, no, you clearly had it handled, I'm sorry. She bowed quickly, and I scratched the back of my head awkward. I mean, I guess, but I still appreciate it. You look nervous, I'm sure you'll do fine, though. I reassured her, and she glanced up at me, a tinge of red on her cheeks, and smiled. Thank you. I noticed the gate open and offered a smile before rushing off, the experience from the harpy sharpening my mind into one of absolute focus. Right, let's start. Get moving, there are no countdowns in real battles. I heard Present Mike exclaim from behind me, but I ignored it in favor of dashing towards a small herd of robots. They were intimidating, but I felt no fear. After all, this is nothing compared to that monster. I leaped and slammed a leg into the top of a two-pointer, the metal crumbling under my foot like paper. I leapt off and quickly stabbed my knife into the face of a three-pointer, backflipping out of the way of some missiles launched from another three-pointer. 5 points. I had an idea. I drew the attention of the three-pointer and dashed into a group of ones and twos. The missiles fired, and I dodged at the last second, letting them blow up the whole group. 19 points. At this point, the rest of the contestants arrived, so I dashed off to find another group so I wouldn't have to compete. On my way, I saw a two-pointer about to pin down a girl with its tail, so I quickly dashed over and kicked it out of the way, before spinning around and slamming my knife into its glowing eye. Red, just like her, no, don't lose focus. I continued like that for a while, using the power of my Falna to go from robot to robot, shredding and crumpling metal with ease. Is this really how far I've come? These things seem so weak. To think I'm not even halfway to level 2 yet. The blessing truly is incredible. Points started to rack up. 21, 22, 25, 28, 31, 33, 34, a group, 43, 55, 61. Just like I did with that one girl, if I saw someone in a bad position, I'd jump in and save them. It felt like the right thing to do, and I still got points out of it, so why not? 8 minutes had passed, and I was sitting at a comfortable 68 points. The ground started to rumble, and out of the ground rose an absolute unit of a machine, the zero-pointer. How the hell are we supposed to deal with that? I shrugged and went to dash away before I heard a girl cry out. I whipped back and spotted a mane of brown hair trapped under some rubble. Shit. I quickly made my way over. Hey, are you okay? I asked, sliding to my knees next to her, the concrete shredding the knees of my pants, but barely leaving a bruise against my skin. Right, the Falna increases everything. Speed, strength, durability, flexibility. Even thought speed is increased. No wonder I feel so light now. Artemis once said that if a blessed mortal is akin to a demigod when compared to a non-blessed mortal. The higher level ones, the first-class adventurers higher than level 5, are superhuman to the point that she said any level 6 or 7 could probably take on All Might. Just gaining a Falna automatically made you superhuman, though only slightly. I think my leg is broken. The girl wheezed, tears in the corner of her eyes. I quickly observed the debris pinning her. If I try to move it, I'm not confident that I won't make her injury worse. Best course of action is to take down the zero-pointer. Shit, can I even do that? I then felt a tingling in my hand and glanced down to see the same white sparkles dancing around my hand as they did against the harpy. Right, Argonaut, I nodded and began the charge. A chime sounded, slowly rising in volume. Artemis told me that it sounds like a grand bell once it's fully charged. I won't have enough time to fully charge it. I'll have to make do. I ran to a nearby alley and did some, if you ask me, impressive acrobatics, jumping from wall to wall. Reaching the roof, I quickly ran and leaped onto the arm of the zero-pointer, dodging its rockets and its massive hands as it attempted to swat me off. The glow had expanded, my entire arm shining a brilliant white. I need to strike the head. I leaped, arriving on the robot's shoulder. I took a deep breath, flipped my knife, dashed, and swiped at the bot's neck. Slitch! A white light flew from my knife, cutting through the bot's neck like a hot knife through butter. An ominous creaking sound echoed through the area, and the zero-pointer's massive head slid off, the lights dulling. It crashed to the ground, luckily not hitting anyone. I winced. I should have thought that out more. Exhausted, I slipped from the shoulder. Fuck. Luckily, a slap caught me, arresting all my momentum. The girl had caught me with her quirk. She was now floating on top of the rubble, a pink hue surrounding it. She was staring at me in awe. That was incredible. She shouted before wincing, "Re-release." She put the tips of her fingers together and the rubble, her, and I all crashed back to the ground. Rainbow noises, I winced. "How's your leg?" I panted, standing up, brushing off the dust, and strolled over. An alarm blared, signaling the end of the exam. I should be good with points, I think. She rolled over onto her back, her head lolled to the side in exhaustion, her hair sticking to her forehead from the sweat. I was sure I didn't look much better. Hurts, but I'll be okay. An old lady strolled over, using a massive syringe as a walking stick. It was Recovery Girl. I lit up before I slapped myself just as quickly. Not today, fanboy fanatic. Oh dearie me, what happened to you? She approached the girl, and her lips stretched out like a proboscis. Ugh, that is so disturbing to see. Smooch. The girl's wounds started to glow, and her wounded leg healed over. The awkward angle her ankle was in snapped back into place. The girl passed out. Oh, she must have been even more tired than I thought. She'll be okay, right? Recovery Girl looked over at me and smiled. She'll be fine, a friend of yours. Ah, no, I only met her today. Just wanted to make sure she'd be okay. I should get going though. Hopefully I'll see her in class. She was pretty cool. Saved my life too, probably. I might have been fine, but I'm glad I didn't have to find out. Recovery Girl nodded, running her eyes over me. She held out a gummy. For the exhaustion. Thank you, ma'am. I nodded and made my way back out the front gates, where May was vibrating excitedly. That was so much fun. She yelled, sweat clinging to her mechanic's outfit in a very appealing way. I turned my eyes, flushed. It didn't matter as she promptly threw her arms around me in a cheer. I felt her body squeeze up next to me. Luckily, any reaction I could have had was immediately cut off by the smell. May, get off, you stink. Go take a shower, then we can celebrate. My baby worked out perfectly. With my Zoom, I camped on top of a building and sniped all of the bots with her. I think I'll name her, actually. Baby 1312 doesn't quite match her, not after today. She rambled. I smiled, and the two of us made our way to my home, where we'd be celebrating. Goddess Artemis and my parents decided that, regardless of if we passed or not, we deserved to celebrate. She also would be updating our status, as I'm sure the exam will be a great source of excellia for both of you. I got it, she shall be forever known as the Moonlit Bow. May cheered and I grinned. I love that name. When May and I got home, we were met with smiling faces and congratulations, despite the fact our results haven't even arrived. When I pointed out this fact, Mom merely smiled and said we have full confidence in the two of you. Which really made my day, honestly. I may have teared up a little. There was katsudon and chocolate cake waiting for us. May loves chocolate. Oh, by the way, Izuku, May, Hisashi was able to get me an audience with the principal of UA. Nezu, I explained who I was, and with the backing of Hisashi, I was able to convince him the authenticity of my divinity. It helps that he's an animal, which gives him a stronger connection to sensing the supernatural. We talked, and he's given me permission to interview various students across the different classes of UA to find new familia members, especially considering Gia's awakening. As much confidence as I have in the two of you, I'm afraid it'd be impossible for you two to clear the dungeon and reach her by yourselves. Goddess Artemis informed us with a smile, clearly excited at the prospect of expanding her familia. Are you going to exclusively invite the hero students? I asked. Ah, no. In fact, Nezu and I agreed it'd be better to limit how many students I invite into our familia, at least at first, since it'd put a lot of attention on us, which wouldn't be great. It'd make me a target if villains discovered I could bestow something that allowed them to get stronger, potentially on par with All Might someday. Goddess Artemis held up a piece of paper full of names and class numbers. He gave me a list of students from both your year and the others as well that he thought may be a good choice. I have already looked through it, and there are some good potential members I saw. There's a recommendation student who passed, who'll be in 1A Momo Yaoyorozu. I'll admit, part of it is her quirk. It'd be invaluable in the dungeon. I'm not going to make any final decisions until I've interviewed them. Quirks aren't nearly as important as their personalities. Goddess Artemis explained. I nodded in understanding, and May glanced over at the list, spotting her name. Immediately, her eyes widened, and a dare I say it, feral grin sprouted across her lips. Ooh, I am so gonna make babies with her. May. Oh, Izuku, you know you'll always be my favorite co-creator of babies. Don't get jealous. I'm not jealous. I facepalmed, and my parents laughed at my misfortune. By this point, they had heard about May's fascination with calling her inventions her babies, so they weren't too worried. Didn't stop Dad from pulling me aside and teasing the life out of me. I could feel my face turning red. A few hours of celebration passed, and May made her way home. I offered to walk her, but she grinned and held up her bow. My baby will protect me from any big scary monsters, Greenbean. She strolled off with a jaunty tune being whistled, her bow glowing a faint bluish silver as it was strung across her back. I paused a moment, before following after her anyway, barely noticing the amused looks on my parents' faces, along with Goddess Artemis stifling a giggle. I'm coming anyway. Don't you trust me? With your own safety. No, with others' safety, even less. You wound me, Izu. Izu. You've been upgraded from the offspring. I'll take it. Good boy. She then patted me on the head patronizingly, and I regretted socializing with the gremlin. Under the light of a waning moon, May and I made our ways to her humble abode, aka her workshop home junkyard. She's been living alone for almost a year now, moving into an apartment workshop only 2 months before we met. Her parents live across Japan and own a support company of her own. When May told them she wanted to go to UA, they promptly just rented out an apartment for her. They visit occasionally, but like my dad, who actually will have to fly back to America next week, they can't leave their work for long. Are you actually going to sleep, or are you gonna build some more? I'll sleep, she looked away, obviously lying. May. I will. Don't make me force you. How? She looked at me innocently. I froze how my brain froze. Never mind. She grinned and laughed at me, realizing I had no real plan. It's okay, Izu. I'll actually go to bed at a reasonable time. I smiled at her, and we continued on our way to her home. A mild journey later, we arrived, and I bid her a good night. Just before I was about to leave, May froze, before starting to shake slightly. I looked at her in concern. May, are you okay? Last time I let you go home alone at night, you nearly died. Oh, damn it, I'm sorry, May. I won't nearly die this time. That implies you're gonna get attacked. She started to cry a little and wrapped her arms around me, nearly crushing me. Damn, May really is strong. I can ask my parents for me to stay the night. Will you? I can try. Okay, I rarely see May like this. Vulnerable, small. Quiet, it's nice, in a way that makes me feel bad about it. To know she cares, but sad she's so scared. I untangled myself from her arms, which was more of a task than I'd like to admit, and dialed Mom's number. Hello, Izuku. Hey Mom, this is probably a stretch, but May is really not comfortable with the idea of me walking home alone, especially since last time. Anyway, I kind of feel bad just leaving her alone. Could I stay the night? There was a silence on the other side for a moment, followed by a sigh. Izuku, fine. Just no funny business, okay? You're two teenagers alone overnight. I don't want to be a grandmother yet. I felt my face flush bright red. Mom, it's not like that. Oh, not yet, sweetheart. Don't think I haven't noticed the glances you give her when you think she's not looking. I could hear the grin on her lips. Mom, I whined, I love you, see you tomorrow. I then promptly hung up, a hand covering my glowing face. May glanced up at me, her unique eyes almost glowing in the night. That's cool, actually. So, I can stay. Her face broke into a wide grin and she hoisted me into her arms, my feet leaving the ground. I swear I felt my ribs crack. Seriously, what is her strength stat? She set me out as I wheezed. She grabbed my hand and dragged me inside, talking excitedly about how she's never had a sleepover and that we can stay up late and watch movies or something. I glanced at my phone. 8:16 p.m., I sighed. We can stay up until 10:00, May, but no later. You promised to get some sleep tonight. I said, a deadpan on my face. May pouted before agreeing. The two of us watched a movie together, relaxing in her room, which was cluttered beyond belief. In fact, we had to sit on her bed as it was the only clear surface. She has a couch, but it had an entire car engine on it. How did she get that in here? Did she build it on the couch? Is she making the couch a car? By the time the movie ended, it was 10:23 p.m., and May had fallen asleep on my shoulder, popcorn scattered across the room from her messy eating, her hand gripping mine. I felt my heart jump in my chest, and I smiled softly. I followed her to the land of Morpheus soon after. A loud squeal woke me up, and I bolted upright, flinging May, who had been asleep on my chest, off the bed. I glanced around frantically and spotted two people standing in the door frame of May's room. One of them was an older woman, dressed in overalls with a red tube top underneath, with blonde hair pulled into a ponytail and light green eyes, while the other was a curvaceous young woman with purple eyes and long eyelashes, with long blonde hair trailing down her back. She was dressed in a purple crop top and light blue skinny jeans, with a tan jacket with fur lining over her shirt. It took me a moment, but I soon recognized her as MT Lady. From the floor, May groggily glanced up, spotting our visitors. The older blonde had her hands covering her mouth, hiding what I could only assume to be a smirk, while MT Lady was openly grinning. Mom, Aunt you? She asked, before suddenly she bolted awake, a massive grin lighting up her face. Mom, Aunt you? She dived towards them and wrapped them up in a hug, lifting both of them off the floor. I saw their eyes bulge as she squeezed them, and I decided to save them. May, aren't you going to introduce me? I asked, desperately trying to hide my nervousness from meeting her mom and aunt. Where was her dad? May dropped her family members and whizzed around, waving her arms toward me like I was a brand new invention, and she was introducing me to the world. This is Izuku Midoriya. He's my best friend and partner. Oh ho, partner, huh? How long has this been going on? Miss Yu grinned, I flushed. Not that kind of partner, I help her make her babies. Wait, inventions. I knew what you meant, just teasing. She grinned. I sighed, a tinge of red on my cheeks. May's mom stepped forward and stuck out her hand, a feral grin on her lips that made my mouth go dry. Mordred Hatsum Takeyama, at your service. My husband stayed home to run our company, but my little sister and I decided to visit May to congratulate her on taking the exams. We'll be in town until she gets her letter. May grinned at that. Now, mind explaining why I found a boy sleeping in her bed with her? Oh, that's easy. He stayed the night because last time I sent him home alone at night, he almost died. Oh. Yep. Huh, okay. And that was how I met her family. Later that day, May and I found ourselves making our way back to my house as Mrs. Hatsum and Miss Takeyama wanted to meet my parents and thank them for helping Hatsum feel welcome. May was excitedly telling her mom about everything she had built since she had last seen her, and I was wondering if Lady Artemis was going to bring up the blessing. Izuku helped me build this baby. May yelled, showing off a picture of one of the babies we had built on her phone. I glanced over her shoulder and immediately grimaced. I remember that one. It blew up a grand total of 38 times before we figured out the issue. It was a jetpack, and apparently the fuel she was using reacted harshly with rust somehow, and because we were using the scrap from the beach, we didn't realize that was the issue for quite a while. It was a fun time. Is that based off the One Jet Hero? Yes. Izuku got that immediately too. I like him then. Mrs. Hatsum laughed and I fidgeted. We arrived at the door to my apartment and I knocked before opening the door. Mom, Dad, Lady Artemis, we're home. I called out as I walked in, taking off my shoes at the entrance. I heard my mom shuffling around before she turned the corner from the living room. Welcome home, Izuku. She looked at the women behind me. Who are our guests? This is Mordred Hatsum Takeyama and Yu Takeyama. They're Mei's mom and aunt respectively. Apparently, Mrs. Hatsum is visiting for the week, and Miss Takeyama took the week off from her job. Oh, she's MT, lady. How'd you know that? Are you a fan? Miss Takeyama teased me, wrapping an arm around me and burying my face into her cheeks as she gave me a noogie. God, she's friendly. Yeah, friendly. I can see the family resemblance. I flushed. In more ways than one soft, I pushed away, coughing into my hand. I glanced up at my mom and saw her amused smirk before turning away. Damn it. Well, welcome to our home. Mei is a sweetheart and has been good for Izuku. He's definitely come into his own with her friendship, a lot more confident. Mom smiled and the four of us filed into the living room. My dad was sitting at the couch, typing away on his laptop. He glanced up and smiled. Welcome home, Izuku Mei. Miss you, Mrs. Hatsum. I'm Hisashi Midoriya, call me Hisashi, otherwise it'd be confusing. He turned back to his work. I don't mean to be rude, but I need to get this done real quick. Make yourself at home. Artemis was reading a book over at the table in the kitchen. She glanced up from it. My name is Artemis. I'm a family friend of the Midoriyas and have gotten to know Mei pretty well through them. She's a good friend to our Izuku. My name is Inko, I'm Izuku's mom. Mei basically has begun to live with us these last few weeks, she laughed. Call me Mordred, please, Hatsum's mom smiled. Call me you. And with that, everyone was introduced to one another. There were plenty of embarrassing stories told on both ends, and I saw Mei flush from embarrassment for the first time. I didn't even think she could feel embarrassment. It was cute. Damn it, not again. I flushed slightly. Anyway, I think there is something that I should bring up since I haven't had the opportunity to before. Artemis spoke up. What would that be? Mordred asked. It's a bit of a long story. I guess the easiest would be to ask Hatsum to show you her back real quick. Artemis glanced over at Mei, who nodded and turned away from everyone and lifted the back of her shirt, revealing the falna on her back. You got a tattoo? Mordred exclaimed. No, nothing like that. Lady Artemis waved her hands frantically. It's my blessing. You see, I'm not just named Artemis, I am Artemis, the goddess. I'm able to bestow something known as the blessing upon mortals, granting them the ability to level up. Mei, you can lower your shirt now. Izuku has my blessing too. It allows mortals to get faster, stronger, more durable, flexible, and unlock magic and various skills. In fact, I haven't updated their statuses since the exam. Izuku. Artemis gestured for me to lay on my stomach, which I did so after removing my own shirt. Damn, Mei, you chose well, he's chiseled. You commented. Auntie. I chose to ignore the comment, and I felt Lady Artemis straddle my back, followed by the tingling of the blessing updating. I heard a soft gasp. Congratulations, Izuku. You got your first spell somehow. Did you read a grimoire or something? No, those wouldn't exist here. You also shot up in your stats. What exactly did they have you do for that exam? She got off of me, copied my status to a piece of paper, and handed it to me. Izuku Midoriya. LV1. SDRG 282. Right arrow E561. VITH 205. Right arrow G301. Dex F303. Right arrow D609. AGI F353. Right arrow B803. Mag I right arrow I15. Magic. Slat 1. Midnight Serenade. Protection magic that steadily heals wounds inflicted on the user and largely raises their agility and dexterity while active. Constantly drains mind. Its effectiveness depends on the user's magic stat. And you were just like the moon, so lonely, so full of imperfections. But just like the moon, you shine in times of darkness. Midnight Serenade. Skill. Argonaut. Ilios Passion. Irikiparimvasi. That's awesome. I breathed looking at the spell. A self-buffing spell. That could be extremely useful. I'll need to practice using it in combat, though. Izuku, since this is the first spell you've acquired, I need to explain to you how exactly magic works. There are two different types of magic: congenital magic, magic based on one's own ability and race, and acquired magic, magic based on the fauna given by the gods and goddesses. Most magic requires three things to activate: will, chant, trigger. Will is the gathering of your mind, your mana. Chant are the words you say to direct your mind into the desired shape, and trigger casts the spell. Some spells don't have a chant. I knew someone who only needed to gather his mind and use his trigger word. If you stutter on your chant or mispronounce a word, or even fail to enunciate it properly, you could lose control of your magic and trigger something known as an ignis fatuus, which basically causes the spell to blow up in your face. Not fun. So before you even cast your spell, I want you to practice the chant over and over until you can say it without even thinking about it, with no stutters or flaws. Don't even try to gather any mind for it, understand? How would I even do that? Think of it like this. You have a pool of energy residing in your head, your heart, and your gut. It flows through your body at all times, but rarely does it do anything. In fact, I believe that these quirks of yours are actually a mutation in your species that causes the latent mind to trigger a specific mystery upon the world or to mutate the body in some way. Anyway, when you draw upon your mind, you're focusing on enacting your will upon the world around you. In people without a fauna, actually getting to this step is incredibly difficult, but in your case, the fauna will simply do the process for you when you focus on it. Could I try and learn to draw upon my mind without using the fauna? Potentially, though that be incredibly difficult and take a long time. But if you do manage it, you could maybe experiment with spell creation. It'd be incredibly dangerous, and I wouldn't recommend it, and it'd be weaker than fauna-based magic, but you could. It'd allow you to use concurrent chanting, a high-level technique involving casting magic while fighting or moving around. Its difficulty is likened to dealing with a bomb with both hands while fighting due to the chance of failing a chant or not being able to control their own magic power. I'd recommend learning it as soon as you could, as standing still in combat as a frontline fighter, like you're trying to be, would be a bad idea. Okay, that was a lot of information. Also, I think we forgot about our guests. The two of us looked around, seeing the gobsmacked looks on you and Mordred's faces, and I sheepishly rubbed the back of my head. Sorry, we got distracted. Artemis smiled. May, do you want to update your status? Yes, please. She lifted the back of her shirt and laid down where I was a moment ago, having moved out of the way. A moment later, she was looking at her own status. She pouted. I didn't get any magic. Artemis laughed at that. That's okay, magic is extremely rare. The fact Izuku has it at all surprises me. Okay, so let me get this straight. You're a goddess. You cut in. Yep. And you can bestow a blessing onto people that lets them get stronger, right? Yeah. Can you bless anyone? I can, yes, though I'm trying to be a bit picky in who I choose to add to my familia. So far, I only have May and Izuku. Can you bless me? What? Artemis, May, Mom, Dad, and Madrid all looked at you in shock. What? I'm a hero, and this gives me the opportunity to be a better hero. Why wouldn't I ask for that opportunity? You huffed, crossing her arms under her sizable bosom, which I totally didn't notice. They really are related. Damn hormones. Artemis stared. Okay, I can give you the blessing. I'd be happy to. Family of May is family of mine. Artemis smiled. You grinned. How do we do this? Well, please follow me into a side room. I need full access to your back, which requires a full strip of your shirt. I don't think you want to flash everyone. Yeah, no thanks. I'm only promiscuous as MT, lady, not you Takeyama. I'm just as lazy as you. She laughed. Mordred rolled her eyes. I've seen your apartment. Lazy is an understatement, you. You stuck out her tongue at her sister. Anyway, let's do this. And with that, the two of them walked away. 5 minutes later, which was spent with me explaining how I met Artemis to Mordred, you and Artemis returned, with you looking a little dejected at her stats. You take Yama. LV1. SDR I0. VIT I0. Dex I0. AGI I0. Mag I0. Magic. Skill. Gigantification. I wonder why her quirk showed up when May's didn't. I asked. Artemis shrugged. I think it's because hers is a mutation quirk, so it's simply a part of her body. It'd be the same reason why on elves longevity isn't a skill. Gigantification is such a unique ability, however, that the Falna recognized it, I think. That makes sense to me. I shrugged and moved on. So how do I raise my stats? Right about that, have you ever heard of Gia? A long explanation later, and we had our first pro hero aware of the dungeon awakening. Do we know where the entrance to the dungeon is yet? You asked. I'm afraid not. Also, your quirk is likely going to be pretty useless the first couple of floors, so I recommend getting a weapon. The first few floors of the dungeon, if I remember Gia's dungeon right, are similar to the one in my old world. Small, tight spaces. Bad idea to get big. Right, I'll commission a weapon to be made, and I'll ask a buddy of mine to train me in it. I'm thinking of a warhammer. I bet I can find someone to make it grow when I grow. That'd be badass. She grinned and I laughed. Hatsum's eyes blazed. I will make the warhammer with the power of blacksmithing. She declared. I sighed. New project. Another few hours passed, and May and her family bid mine a farewell, going into town for their own celebration and family time. I went to my room and started working out. I also started reciting my chant while I worked out, starting over whenever I mumbled, stuttered, or mispronounced something. They were nice. I steadily got to know more about May's half of the family over the course of the week. Mordred apparently was a hero before May was born, where she retired to raise her. She married her support engineer, a man named Kairi Hatsum. She described him as a muscular punk with long red hair. He apparently has a scar across his right eye from a malfunctioning invention, and he's a few years older than her. Hatsum's pink hair actually came from her grandfather, Kusuo Hatsum, who had an intelligence-boosting quirk. Mordred was a nice lady, if a bit rough around the edges. She actually reminded me of Katsuki's mom, Mitsuki. Kind, but feisty. Also, incredibly beautiful. A certified MILF if comments from strangers were anything to go by as we walked through a mall earlier this week. Her hero name was Saber, as she specialized in sword combat, supplementing her own quirk arc, which allowed her to create something out of solid light, which she often used in conjunction with her sword to create beams of light. Yu Takeyama seemed to enjoy attention and was very shameless. She often teased May and me, and she cares a lot about her appearance. She's apparently a bit lazy, though I haven't seen that side of her much. However, she's serious about her job as a hero, despite her using her appeal to increase her following. She's always careful about using her quirk and cares a great deal about helping people. She's a good person, despite her flaws. Today was the day we were supposed to get our results. I got my letter a little bit ago and was waiting for May and her family to show up with hers so we could open them together. I was kind of nervous. I wondered if I passed, though I was pretty sure I did well enough to. I really hope May and I are in the same class, that'd be great. Fuck, I hope I'm not in Katsuki's class. A knock on the door alerted me to May's arrival, and I let them in, May practically vibrating in excitement, you and Mordred smiling behind her. We all made our way into the kitchen. Who wants to open theirs first? Mom asked, my dad peering over my shoulder. I swore he was just as nervous as I was. Oh, me. May vibrated in her chair and practically tore her envelope apart in her haste. Out popped a small metal disc, which promptly lit up with a projection of a small rat, bear, marsupial creature. It waved. Hello, my name is Principal Nezu. Congratulations. You passed the written exam with a 94%. That's an incredible score, considering I was the one who wrote out the test. I especially enjoyed how thorough you were on the engineering knowledge part of your exam. As for your practical, you earned a sizable sum of 58 villain points. However, we weren't scoring you solely on that. We also were watching for heroic action, which you, my dear, showed with a whopping 23 rescue points from the various times you went out of your way to help a fellow contestant, putting you in the top 10, putting you in second place with 81 points. I'd also like to say, Majima, also known as Power Loader, was very impressed with your bow. He asked if you'd be willing to spend an extra hour after class for some extra teaching. He's our faculty member in charge of our support course development studio. Regardless, congratulations on passing the UA entrance exam. Oh, your class is 1A, and with that, it powered off. The room was silent for a moment before everyone cheered. Congratulations, May, I knew you could do it. I cheered, pulling her into a hug, which was promptly turned into a giant group hug as everyone else joined it. May was grinning so wide I thought her face was going to split. Tears started to pool before she wiped them away. It's your turn, Izuku, she exclaimed. I nodded, and a lot more carefully than May did, opened my own letter. My own projection started, revealing a tired-looking guy with long black hair and yellow goggles around his neck, a long black shirt, and what looked to be sweat pants. I deadpanned. In an exhausted voice, it began. Izuku Midoriya, you earned 68 villain points. However, we also neglected to inform you we'd be watching for heroic action. Rescue points. You earned 60, which we dropped to 45 because of your reliance on another student to save you towards the end. Regardless, with a total of 113 points, that puts you in first place in the entrance exam, just below All Might's record of 117. Congratulations, you'll be in Class 1A and it powered down. Wow, he was certainly unique. Mordred joked. You got first place. May shook me wildly and I laughed. So I did. I couldn't believe it. First place, I turned to Artemis and bowed my head. This is all because of you and the opportunity you gave me. Thank you so much. I cried. I felt a hand raise my head up, beckoning me to look at her in the eyes. She was smiling softly. I only provided the blessing. Everything else was your own hard work. Stand tall, Izuku. You earned this with your own 2 hands. I teared up and began sobbing again, which promptly triggered my mother's own sobbing. How is there this much water? You cried. I laughed through my tears. Thank you, goddess. The morning of my first day of school was a hectic one. Dad was leaving for his flight. May wanted to walk to school with me since we were in the same class, which was really awesome. Artemis apparently was going to go meet with Nezu later today as well, where they'd ask certain students to stay after school for an interview with her, and Mom wanted to make sure I had everything I needed. You're so cool, Izuku. Mom said, tears in her eyes as my dad wrapped his arm around her. He'd be leaving right after me. I'm so proud of you, son. Dad piped up. I felt a watery smile stretch across my face, and I hastily wiped away any tears before they could form. Thank you, Mom, Dad, see you, I love you. I called, turning away and exiting the home. May was waiting for me at the bottom of our apartment, and the 2 of us made our way towards our future high school career. May and I were excitedly buzzing about all the possibilities. Who were our new teachers going to be? What kind of quirks will we see? How could we build support equipment for them? Will our hero outfits look how we imagined? Well, in that case, I know mine will. Dad helped design it. May's probably will be fine too, knowing the goblin. Soon enough, we arrived outside the gates of UA, and I had to help May not get lost in the winding hallways of the famous school. Spaz. I quickly guided us to our homeroom class, 1A, and stopped outside the massive door. For gigantification quirks, or just big mutation quirks. I mused out loud. Probably, May shrugged. All Might went here, he's pretty big. I don't think he was that big when he was 15, May. You don't know that? With a laugh and a shake of my head, I opened up the door to our classroom. I hope Katsuki's not in my class, fuck. There he was, arguing with the guy from the exam. Iida Tenya, right? Isn't Iida the last name of Ingenium? Siblings, maybe. Please remove your feet from your desk. It's highly disrespectful to your fellow peers and to all the previous graduates of this school that came before us. Iida chopped towards Katsuki. Huh. What, did you get some kind of stick shoved up your ass by your old school, or were you just born with it? Katsuki smirked, leaning back in his chair, deliberately provoking Ida. I sweat dropped. Lucky me. How uncouth. I'm Tenya Ida from the Sumi Private Academy. Sumi, huh? You must think you're better than me, you elitist. I'm gonna enjoy putting you in your place. You'd threaten me? Are you sure you want to be a hero? Katsuki looked like he was gonna bite back a response before I must have caught his eye as he faltered and turned toward me, a scowl coming onto his face. Ida also turned, spotting me. The rest of the classroom also spontaneously turned towards May and me. What the heck? Why are they all looking at us? It's you. Ida marched over to me and bowed, a single chopped hand held out in front of him. My name is Tenya Ida. I heard we met at the entrance exam. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Nice to be reacquainted. Right, I must thank you for settling my nerves. Also, you realized that there was something more to the practical exam, didn't you? Ah no, I just did what felt right. I sweat dropped. This guy is so serious. Oh, is he talking about the rescue points? May piped up from behind me. I was surprised she had been quiet this long, but it seems she got bored just standing back. She smiled brightly and turned to the rest of the class, hands on her hip. I'm May Hatsum. This is Izuku Midoriya. He helps me make my babies and is my best friend. It's a pleasure to meet you. I felt a bit of my social status immediately take a swan dive, and I hastily corrected her. She means inventions when she says babies. I quickly got out, barely diffusing what I could only assume to be a lecture from Ida. The blonde sitting right next to the door grinned, and here I was thinking we already had a couple. He teased me. I'm Denki Kaminari, it's nice to meet you. I smiled awkwardly, a faint blush rising to my cheeks. Oh, it's you. I recognize that unkempt hair. Falling boy, a voice called behind me, and I turned to see the girl I saved at the entrance exam. May looked at her curiously. Those acrobatics you pulled were awesome. You were like Zip and Zoom. She cheered, pumping her first. May leaned over to me. Is this the girl you mentioned saving? She stage whispered, which I didn't even know she had the volume control for. I nodded. I heard Katsuki scoff, and I sighed to myself. He's going to be a pain. At least he's not causing a scene right now. Lord knows his initial reaction to me passing the exams wasn't the greatest. Flashback smash. Nice, right anime this time. What did you do to pass the exam? Katsuki screamed at me, hands gripping my uniform collar. I grimaced. You must have cheated somehow. I'm supposed to be the first and only student from this crappy school to get into UA. You just had to screw that all up, Deku. I glared at him down, my hand coming up and gripping his arm. I used a bit of my new strength to push him off me, much easier than I ever would have before. Have I already made it superhuman? Of course I have. I was bouncing off walls during the exam and my status shot up since then. Screw yourself, Katsuki. I surprised myself with the venom in my tone. I'm not your plaything to push around anymore. I passed, fair and square, and I will be a hero. I don't need your permission. For the record, I even got first place. Back you bitch. I mentally cheered at that one and brushed past him. I swallowed the knot in my throat. Thank goddess for May, I thought. I never would have had the self-confidence to say that to him. She really helped me understand what a friendship is supposed to be like. I strode away. Present. So what do you think we'll be doing today, other than orientation? Oh, who's your friend? I'm Uraraka Achako. It's nice to meet you. Achako bubbled as May and I stared. She's very bubbly. If you're here to make friends, then I suggest you get out. A gravelly voice drifted up. Achako, May and I all peered out the classroom door to see, is that a yellow caterpillar? No, it's our homeroom teacher. Wait, he's the guy who was on that projection. That means he's Eraserhead. After we finished celebrating, I quickly analyzed which hero he could possibly be. Luckily, he had his yellow goggles on during the projection, which allowed me to figure out his identity fairly quickly. Eraserhead was an inspiration to me since he fights quirkless. I hope, since he's our homeroom teacher, that there will be hand-to-hand combat training. With May and I's Falna, we'll benefit greatly from it. Welcome to UA's hero course. Eraserhead pulled out a juice pouch and instantly absorbed everything, like some kind of vampire. It took 8 seconds for you all to shut up. That's valuable time wasted. Rational students would understand that. He turned to the rest of the class. My name is Shouta Aizawa. I am your homeroom teacher. Put on your gym uniforms and meet me outside. You have 5 minutes to change. If you're late, you'll be removed from the hero course." At this, everyone froze in shock for a moment, before scrambling to the locker rooms to put on their gym uniforms. We collectively sprinted, changed as fast as we could, thank you for locking my status so it's invisible, Goddess Artemis, and made it outside where our teacher was waiting for us with a timer. He looked up. 4 minutes and 38 seconds. Well done. He grinned. We'll be doing a quirk assessment test. But what about orientation? Achako asked. If you really want to be a hero, you can't waste time on pointless ceremonies. Here at UA, we have the ability to govern our classes with a lot more freedom than most. That means I get to run my class however I see fit. He turned and held up his phone, displaying the typical standardized test exercises we took in middle school. You've done testing throughout most of your lives, but have never been allowed to use your quirk. This is a logical fallacy, as it prevents you from using all of your resources for maximum potential. That is what we are here to discover, your true limits. He turned to me. Midoriya, you got first place on the entrance exam. What was your throwback in middle school? I winced. He must have caught it since he bilayed me out. Never mind, that's not important. What is important, however, is your current limits. Try again, but use all your force this time. I nodded. I wonder how far it'll be now. I mean, my strength is now 561. I took the ball and stepped forward, ignoring the piercing glare from Katsuki and the curious looks from my classmates. I could hear them whispering to themselves. He's the first place finisher. He looks so normal, kinda scrawny too. You should have seen him. He decapitated the 0-pointer. You're kidding. At this, I allowed a soft smile to come onto my face. Yeah, I guess that was pretty cool in hindsight. I stood in the center of the circle and tossed the ball up and down. I breathed and wound back and promptly yote that motherfucker. I damn near threw out my shoulder and almost fell forward, and I was definitely surprised at the difference. Holy shit, 158 kilometers. The rest of the class let out a gasp, staring at me in shock. Holy shit, 158 kilometers. That's insane. Are you kidding me? Elbow Guy said, I need to learn some names. May's rubbing off on me. This seems like it'll be fun. Pink Girl cried, cheering. Will we be able to use our quirks as much as we want? Awesome. So this looks like fun to you? Aizawa cut us off, his voice serious. I have 3 years to try and turn you into heroes. Do you really think it's just going to be fun and games? Fine. We'll do 8 tests to determine your potential. Whoever ends up in last place will be determined to have none and will be expelled. Oh shit. What? That's not fair. We just got here. Achako called out. Life's not fair. Villain attacks, natural disasters, catastrophic accidents that wipe out entire cities, you name it. As heroes, it is our duty to right those unfairnesses and strive to save as many as we can. Lives will be on the line, and it will be up to us to answer their calls. Do you understand? Go beyond. Plus, Ultra, prove your right to be here. His words silenced the class, and a grave determination fell over us. Let's begin. With that, the tests began. We started with the 50-meter dash, a small camera robot sitting on the sidelines, likely to measure out time. Ida and a girl with green hair went first. 3-4 seconds. The girl came up at 5:58 seconds. Achako was clever enough to lighten her clothing with her quirk and got a time of 7:15, while the guy she was paired with got 5:49. Tailman, let your power shine. The most sparkly and flamboyant man I have ever met cried as he shot out a laser from his stomach, only to crash halfway there and stand up and launch again, coming right behind Pinky. Then it was Katsuki and I. Great, why am I always paired up with him? We lined up, with me getting into a standard track launch pose, Katsuki shaping his palms into funnels and placing them behind him. He grinned. Go Izu. May called, and I felt my face heat up at some of the snickers I heard, May oblivious to the discord my nickname had caused. A begin. Burst speed. Katsuki screamed, launching himself forward. I, however, launched myself a split second sooner and damn near face-planted at how light my body felt. An almost triple increase in agility would do that. I quickly stabilized myself and felt my falna burn against my back, the sensation of a skill activating. I felt my speed double, and I practically vanished. I managed to quickly break myself before I ran into someone, and I stared back as Katsuki crossed the finish line a second later, staring at me with anger and confusion. Elio's passion temporarily gives the escapability if being chased. Katsuki must have triggered it since I've recognized him as a threat for so long. 8 seconds. The robot called for me. I felt sweat run down my back. Jesus. Why am I so overpowered? Wait, no, escape doubles speed, so I'm only a bit slower than Ida is right now. Unless he has more gears he can shift to since he has an engine quirk. That makes sense. Not a couple, huh? Kaminari quipped, and I felt my face redden. We're just friends. I tried to defend myself. It was May's turn next, her running next to the guy with multiple arms and a mask. You got this, May. I called, giving her a thumbs up. She grinned and waved excitedly before launching herself forward as the robot called. She was a blur, like I must have been, and I grinned. Our strength and dexterity are mirrors of each other, so while she's a lot stronger than me, she's still pretty fast. For 3 seconds. She cheered. Shoji, as he was called by Aizawa, came up behind her a moment later at 68 seconds. We moved on to grip strength soon enough. I managed to surpass Shoji at 847, 3 kg, while May fucking broke it. God damn, I think I'm blushing. No wonder I can never catch my breath when she hugs me. No wait, that sounds never mind. She literally leaves me breathless. I snorted at my own joke. Many of us managed to clear the sandbox with the standing long jump, including May and I repeated side steps. Everyone did pretty average, May and I scoring pretty far up there. I didn't do the ball throw, but May, Achako, and a girl named Yaoyorozu beat my throw. May beat me with a solid 3.6 kilometers, Achako got an infinity cause that's apparently a thing, and Yaoyorozu got 5.8 kilometers with a goddamn cannon. Solid results all around. The distance run ended up in a 3-way tie between Yaoyorozu, May, and I, since the blessing increased our stamina a crap ton and Aizawa didn't feel like waiting for us to tuck her out, and Yaoyorozu made a scooter. Seriously, what is her quirk? Creation of all things. Oh fuck, I cannot let her and May become acquainted. Sit-ups and toe touch we also scored pretty well. Soon enough, everyone was lined up, waiting for our results. First, Izuku Midoriya. Second, Mei Hatsum. Third, Momo Yaoyorozu. Fourth, Shoto Todoroki. Fifth, Katsuki Bakugo. Sixth, Tenya Iida. Seventh, Fumikage Takami. Eighth, Mizo Shoji. Ninth, Mashiro Ajiro. 10th, Ijiro Kirishima. 11th, Mina Ashida. 12th, Achako Uraraka. 13th, Koji Koda. 14th, Rikido Sada. 15th, Tsuyu Asui. 16th, Yuga Aoyama. 17th, Hanta Seiro. 18th, Denki Kaminari. 19th, Kyoka Jiro. 20th, Toru Hagakure. I winced, poor girl, she's the invisible girl. I could already hear her beginning to hiccup. I went over and patted her on the back silently before freezing. What are you doing? You don't even know her. She started bawling and buried her face in my chest suddenly, and I froze. I looked to May for help, only to see a blank stare on her face. I face-faulted. By the way, I lied. No one's going home. That was just a rational deception to ensure you gave it your all. He had a manic grin on his face, and I thought I could hear the troll-la-la-lol song in the background for a moment. I felt Hagakure freeze before she whipped around to point toward our teacher, or at least I assume she's pointing. What? Everyone cried. Oh dear. I turned to see Yaoyorozu with a hand on her palm. I thought you all knew, it was pretty obvious. I'm sorry, I should have said something. Yeah, you should have. She smiled innocent. I sighed. Damn it. That was pretty nerve-wracking, huh? Seiro asked Kirishima, who grinned. Nah, I was down for even more punishment. He clenched his fists together, their appearance taking on that of a rocky texture. So cool, I wish I was paying more attention to their quirks. So many new things to analyze. Mumble, mumble. Izu, you're mumbling. Oh, my bad. All good, I agree. We should definitely analyze their quirks so we can make awesome babies for them. May, I don't think we're allowed to make them support equipment. Unless you're taking power loaders, offer, and working after school. Of course I am, which means you'll be staying too, since you're my assistant. Right, I nodded, accepting her statement without complaint. Kaminari smirked at me and made a whipping gesture. I withheld the instinct to flip him off. The rest of class filed back into the locker rooms and got changed back into their uniforms before meeting back in our classroom. All right, everyone, we should introduce ourselves. Kaminari called. I'll start. I'm Kaminari Denki, my quirk is electrification, and I love electro swing music. He started, I laughed. Good pick. I said, I like electro swing too. Yeah, we will listen to it occasionally when he's over. Mei piped up, grinning. Oh, I'm Mei Hatsum. My quirk is Zoom. I love chocolate and building babies with Izu. I'm Ijiro Kirishima. My quirk hardening. How long have you two been together? He asked, causing Kaminari to bark out a laugh. I glanced over to see Katsuki leaving the room while the rest of the class congregated in the center of the classroom to socialize. I flushed as the question registered. Around 10 months. Mei said before I could correct him. My face went beet red. Mei, we met 10 months ago, we're not dating. Mei grinned at me slyly, a tinge of pink on her cheeks. Not yet. I gulped. That was the first time she had ever hit on me. Who told her to do that? Who taught her how? Is she serious? I felt myself get a bit dizzy as Kirishima and Kaminari started to laugh, along with a few other members of the class. I'm Mina Ashid. My quirk is acid, and the reason I'm pink is because of certain chemicals in my skin to help me with my acidity resistance. I grinned at her. That's so cool. Can you control the pH of the acid? How about the viscosity? How much can you produce? Can you produce it from anywhere? What he said. Mei and I got right in her face, identical crazed scientist looks on our faces. She sweat dropped. Yes, 30 liters I think, and yes. Amazing, we cheered. Are you two really not dating? Not yet. Mei. Well, I think you two look cute together, Achako teased. Mei grinned before gasping and looking at the time. Oh no, sorry everyone, Izu and I got to go. She grabbed my hand and dragged me out of the classroom, leaving a merry band of classmates all getting to know each other, excluding a few of the more quiet members like Koda, Shoji, and Takami. Mei dragged me off to the support studio, which she somehow knew the location of. I chalked it up to Mei having an innate sense for creation. Keep Yaeyarazu away from her. I am going to befriend Creation Girl. Mei piped up, no. Okay, Mei. I sighed. Too late. The two of us arrived outside the support studio, right as the rest of the students were leaving. Mei strolled in like she owned the place, a look of awe and excitement on her face as she saw all of the tools and materials available to her. Ah, you must be Hatsum. I'm glad you took up my offer. I'm Higari Majima, also known as Power Loader. You can call me Mr. Majima, who is your friend. Mr. Majima looked towards me. My name is Izuku Midoriya, sir. I'm Mei's best friend and she has claimed me as her assistant, so I kind of just help her out when she needs a wrench or something. I also prevent explosions to the best of my ability and remind her to eat, sleep, and drink, along with keeping her functioning. I'm her babysitter, basically. I explained. Mei pouted at me. Mr. Majima nodded. All right. Well then, before I can let you two use anything in the shop, you must first pass a safety test, and then I'll show you how everything in here works, along with giving you a tour. You can build tomorrow. Please note, you'll only be allowed to build support equipment for yourselves and for each other, as one of the assignments I give my students is to help build support gear for the hero department, and I don't want you swiping their work. Can we recommend ideas? We chimed in simultaneously. Power Loader nodded. Okay, let's start with the test. With that, we began our extracurricular. When Hisashi told me he successfully got me a meeting with Nezu, I was quite surprised at how quickly he managed it. It's what I am on my way for right now. From what Izuku's dad told me, Nezu is the smartest creature in Japan, and he'd also be willing to help me expand my familia. We had already done some basic conversing over the phone. What a marvel, modern technology, and he agreed to meet me in person after the first day of school. If I remember right, Mei and Izuku will be staying after too, so maybe I'll see them. I strolled up to the gate, and flashed the visitor pass I was sent to the camera before walking into the massive building. A teacher was waiting for me, who I recognized as the pro hero Snipe. Izuku has helped me learn about a lot of heroes since I've arrived in this world. He led me to the principal's office before going off to do his own duties. I knocked and heard a squeaky voice welcome me in. "Ah, you must be the goddess Artemis. It's a pleasure to be your acquaintance." You know, when Hisashi told me he had met a real, bona fide goddess who could bestow a blessing upon people to grant them the ability to get exponentially stronger, I thought he was joking at first. Haha. The chimera creature laughed before sipping on some tea. "Would you like some tea?" I offered a smile and sat down in the chair across from him. "That'd be nice." Nezu smiled and hopped off his elevated chair and went over to a nearby machine where he turned toward me. "Any preference of flavor?" "Ginger tea would be nice, if you have it." "Of course I have it," he declared, opening up a drawer revealing dozens of flavors of teas lined in a neat row. I laughed and soon accepted a steaming cup of tea placed before me by the small mammal. "All right, let's get down to business." From what Hisashi has told me, along with our own correspondences, you wish to interview students to determine if they'd be a good fit to join your familia. May I ask what exactly you're looking for? Well, I'd prefer to keep the list fairly low and ensure they know how to be discreet. I'd love to meet any students in general education who wanted to be a hero but failed the entrance exam. My familia would provide them a good second chance. I spoke up. Nezu nodded, personality-wise. Kind but also willing to fight if necessary. A good person, essentially. You'll find a lot of those in my school, I assure you. Good, I laughed. He joined me. I remember sending you some students I would recommend. Was there any that stood out to you? Indeed, in fact, I'd love to interview them today if possible. One Momo Yaoyorozu, Shinso Hitoshi, Toru Hagakure, and Yorimi Tajizuki. Well, you're in luck, they're all still here. I will have a teacher collect them after school. May I ask, why those ones specifically? Well, Momo Yaoyorozu is quite frankly a perfect fit for my familia with her quirk, and from the personality analysis, she'd fit in quite well with my other 3 members. Shinso Hitoshi, you stated, took the hero exam, but due to a poor match-up was unable to pass. I'd like to give him that chance. Toru Hagakure, because if I'm right, I'd be able to help her see herself. Yorimi Tajizuki is an orphan, and I'd like to be able to provide a family for her. I see. Well, I will introduce you to them. Luckily, class is just finishing, so they should be arriving soon. I blinked. How did he call them here? I didn't see any notice. Did he just anticipate my selection? That's impossible. It's not impossible, I assure you. He gave me a wry grin, or at least the best equivalent he could considering his inhuman appearance. Did he just read my mind? No, I just guessed based on your facial expression. Are you some sort of rat god? I asked, seriously. He laughed. Oh, I haven't heard that one in a long time, thank you. I decided then and there that Nezu terrified me. A knock on the door interrupted me from my thoughts, and I turned to see the 4 students I had requested. Nezu quickly introduced me. Hello, students, this is Artemis. She is a member of my faculty, I startled, who will be choosing a select few students for an extracurricular class which, if you're lucky, will both allow you to become a hero or improve your future career as one. She requested the 4 of you for an interview to see if you match her requirements. Since when am I faculty? I shot a look of confusion at Nezu, who winked. I sighed. I guess this works. Hello, yes, my name is Artemis. It's a pleasure to meet you. If you'll follow me, I'll lead you to a separate room where you can have your one-on-one discussions. Nezu led the 5 of us away, the students looking between each other in confusion. We came upon a side room with a single bench sitting outside the door. I sweat dropped. Did he have that prepared already? I looked into the room. A single desk with 2 chairs sitting across from each other sat in the otherwise small room, along with a couch along the wall. Right, of course he did. All right, this will do. Who first? I asked, turning to the students. Hagakure cheered. Oh, me? She called. I laughed and welcomed her into the room. The rest of you can go home. I'll interview you one at a time after school tomorrow. I'm sure you had a long day. We closed the door behind me, and I sat down at the desk, facing the invisible girl. So, tell me, Hagakure, have you been invisible your whole life? Well, not my whole life, since I got my quirk at 4 years old, but most of it, yeah. I don't remember what I look like, or what my hair color was. It can be kind of upsetting sometimes, but I've gotten used to it. I see. Well, Hagakure, one of the reasons I requested you, specifically, is because I believe I can help you see yourself again. Become visible. Really? How? Well, I can't tell you unless you swear to secrecy, unfortunately. Deal, whatever it is, I'll do it. I blinked. I didn't even tell you what it was. I don't care. Do you know how hard it is constantly going beneath people's notice? Never having someone look me in the eye. The comments people will make sometimes too. It's horrible. I hate to say this out loud, but sometimes I wish I was born quirkless instead. At least then I'd know what I look like. I could hear tears coming from the girl before me, and I stood shocked. I swallowed. I made the right decision in offering. I'd like to clarify, Hagakure, I have no guarantee it'll work. Even if it doesn't though, I promise you I will try and help you see yourself again, understood? Okay, she sniffled. I smiled at her. Okay, now let me properly introduce myself. I am the goddess Artemis, and I would like to offer you my blessing and a place in my familia. What? Right, let me explain. You know Izuku and Mei, correct? Oh, the power couple. I blinked. I'm glad I'm not the only one who sees that. Anyway, yes, the power couple. You see, Izuku was born quirkless, and Mei was born with a simple magnification quirk in her eyes. But that's impossible. They got first and second place on our assessment test. Right, that's because of my blessing. I gave it to them a while ago, Izuku getting his first, then Mei. The blessing allows people to get stronger over time by earning Excelia, which can be done in a number of ways, but the fastest being combat. Izuku's an exception due to one of his skills, but that's not important right now. What is important is that we've recently discovered that quirks with serious effects on the user become skills, which are inherently toggleable in most situations. I believe that with the blessing, along with a slight modification to it using my divinity, which technically is against the rules but our Ranos isn't here, we'll be able to make your invisibility toggleable as well. That sounds incredible. How do I get the blessing? I winced at that question. Well, you see, you'll need to take off your shirt, since I'll have to apply it to your back. Oh, no problem. With that, the invisible girl promptly stripped off her shirt. I blinked. Right, she's invisible, she's probably used to using her quirk naked. Right, please lay down. I gestured to the couch, and the invisible girl did as I asked. I straddled her hips and pricked my finger, a glow emitting throughout the room. I then focused and unlocked a little bit of my arcanum, just enough to nudge the blessing to work in a specific way. The most I could do, really, since the blessing was originally manufactured by Oranos, and I didn't know enough to tamper with it. A drop. A flash of light, followed by a muffled groan of pain as the blessing seared itself onto Hagakure's soul, and my eyes widened in satisfaction as slowly pale skin started to reveal itself, along with her falna. I grinned. Well, Hagakure, I began, copying her fresh status onto a piece of paper, I hope you have a mirror nearby. A gasp, followed by an excited squeal as the girl practically flung me off and whipped out her phone, turning it to the camera option, unaware that she was still shirtless. I looked away to preserve her dignity. I am visible. I heard her choked voice gasp out, tears spilling from her eyes. She quickly wrapped me up in a hug. Thank you, goddess. She sobbed into my shirt, and I calmly rubbed her back, smiling. After a moment, she composed herself and quickly put her shirt back on. I took a moment to look her over. She had long, messy, wavy chartreuse hair with pink specks and bushy eyelashes and big round eyes. Her pupils were teal on the outside and yellow on the inside, a kaleidoscope almost. Poetic, considering her quirk. I handed her the paper. This is your status. Occasionally, we will update it as you gain more Excelia, allowing you to grow in strength. The girl nodded, looking at her paper. The next day, May and I made our way into class again, only to see a group of students huddled around a desk chatting in excitement. The two of us shared a glance and made our way towards the group. I peeked my head around the students only to see a very pretty girl sitting at a desk, someone I didn't recognize. She was grinning ear to ear and animately talking to everyone before her eyes met mine. Midoriya. She shot up and dived towards me, wrapping me in a hug. I blinked, confused, as May started to sputter next to me. Wait a minute, I recognized that voice. Hagakure? I asked, and she stepped back and nodded excitedly. Lady Artemis helped me figure out how to turn off my quirk. Oh, she also told me about our new shared situation. She explained, and I nodded. Oh, we have a new familia member. I grinned at her. That's amazing news. We're always happy to welcome new members. Yaoyorozu perked up and strolled over. Oh, are you already a part of MS? Artemis's extracurricular. She approached me, Hagakure, and two other students yesterday. I'll actually be meeting her after school today for my interview. Yaoyorozu glanced towards Hagakure. If she's any indication, it's definitely worth my time. Yeah, Ms. Artemis is the whole reason May and I even made it to the hero course at all. Well, May probably could have still made it herself, but she was originally going to go into support. She's amazing. I gushed and May grinned next to me, nodding emphatically. Hagakure nodded with me, grinning widely. I never realized how expressive she actually was. Oh, that reminds me, not only did I figure out how to turn off my invisibility, but I can now extend it to my clothes. With a quick look of concentration, she vanished entirely. I gaped at her and the rest of the class cheered. It does mean I'll need to remake my hero costume though, she said, reappearing. I don't think going naked is a good idea anymore. I paused. What? Naked? I exclaimed. Why would you be naked? Because my clothes couldn't go invisible with me. Have you never heard of clothing made with your hair? It allows the clothes to interact with your quirk. Yaoyorozu froze at that and flushed bright red. I may have to update my own costume too, then. She mumbled. I don't even want to know, I sighed. Everyone, class is about to begin. Please sit down in your seats. Ida called, causing the group of students, half of which were looking between May, Yaoyorozu, Hagakure, and me with interest and confusion, to disperse back to their seats. Right, there's some questions coming soon, I bet. Everyone took their seats, right as Aizawa came strolling in, glancing over the class. He nodded, seemingly satisfied at our preparedness, before pausing on Hagakure. He gave her a small smile and a nod. I have recently been informed that we have gotten a new staff member, who, when not teaching her extracurricular students that she has interviewed and accepted, will be assisting in the hero class training with hand-to-hand combat, along with helping our main teacher get used to teaching. Apparently, she has quite a bit of experience with it. You'll meet her this evening. To the students in our class who have already been accepted, you'll be meeting her after lunch. Anyway, that's all for homeroom. He then promptly pulled out his yellow sleeping bag and walked away, presumably to the teacher's lounge. The classes were pretty normal, which I guess I shouldn't have been too surprised about. Present Mike was our first teacher, teaching English. I was able to stifle my initial reaction to nerd out, luckily, and I was able to answer a lot of the questions fairly easily. It turns out teaching yourself English by watching All Might interviews from America helped with high school. Lunch was delicious. It was held in the main cafeteria and served by the Hero Lunch Rush. I managed to get an autograph out of it before ordering my food. I sat down at one of the many tables, with May plopping down next to me, excitedly talking about possible upgrades to her bow. To my surprise, Yaoyorozu, Achako, Ida, Tsuyu, and Hagakure all sat down with me at my table. It looked like Kaminari, Shiro, and Kirishima were going to sit with us too, but decided to sit with Katsuki at the last second with Ashido and Jiro. I talked a little with those four yesterday, and they were all good people. Takami, Koda, Rikido, Mashiro, and Shaoji all sat with Todoroki at their own table, sitting quietly in mutual agreement. After we finished our lunches, May, Hagakure, and I made our way to the meeting with Goddess Artemis, a small classroom with a few chairs sitting in a circle with only one desk, where she was sat doing paperwork. She was frowning to herself, glaring down at her desk. Lady Artemis, I asked, popping my head in. She glanced up and smiled. Izuku, welcome, come in, all of you. She stood up from her desk, shooting one last glare at her desk. What paperwork is she doing? She's brand new. So, when did you become a teacher here? May asked as the three of us sat down in the chairs. Yesterday. I think Principal Nezu made it up on the spot, but I'm not complaining. Besides, I do have experience teaching, since I had a pretty large familia before I came to this world. Anyway, it gives me a good opportunity to update statuses regularly with any students that join the familia, along with discussing anything that may come up. For example, did any of you see the news this morning? She asked. I shook my head in the negative. Are you talking about the absolutely massive ravine that ripped through Hasu? Apparently multiple buildings collapsed, and it was only due to the timely intervention of multiple heroes that more lives weren't lost. Hagakure piped up. My head whipped to look at her, before I turned to Artemis, a pit forming in my stomach. She nodded gravely. Hagakure, I haven't explained this to you yet, but with my appearance in this world, there came certain consequences. One of them being the reawakening of the dungeon on this planet, created by Gia, who is my great-great-grandmother. Mother Earth. A dungeon is home to monsters of varying strength, the weakest able to slaughter normal humans by the dozens, with the strongest on par with, or even exceeding the top heroes. In fact, back in my world, there was something known as the Three Great Quests, which were born from a dungeon break that released three incredibly powerful monsters known as the Behemoth, Leviathan, and the One-Eyed Black Dragon. 2 of the 3 quests were completed, but unfortunately, the One-Eyed Black Dragon proved too powerful for even 2 of the strongest familias to ever exist to defeat it. Part of me is terrified that there will be another dungeon break of a similar scale in this world. If it does happen, then it could mean entire cities being wiped from the map. That's how dangerous these monsters can be. Artemis let out a sigh. The reason I'm bringing this up, as you may have already inferred by now, is that the entrance to the dungeon has finally been revealed. That ravine is too large for it to be anything else, which means that our extracurricular activities will be starting sooner than I wanted. You 3, along with any other members of the Familia and certain pro-heroes, will be entering the dungeon, where you'll have to take on the first 5 floors on a regular basis, until I can talk to Nezu about recruiting more people. Wasn't the original plan to have a relatively small familia? May asked. It was, but with the dungeon opening, that's no longer plausible. I am the only deity on Earth right now other than Gia, who is our enemy. It took hundreds of adventurers in my old world to keep the dungeon at bay. Luckily, there are plenty of heroes strong enough to maintain clearing the dungeon up to level 20, which is all we'll need to prevent a dungeon break for a few years. But the only people that could go deeper would be the top 15 or even the top 10. It'll be up to our familia to get stronger and be the primary subjugators. It may take years for you all to be strong enough, but between the hero training, the Falna, and your quirks, I have full confidence that you'll be strong enough to eventually conquer the dungeon. Everyone was silent for a moment. I swallowed. I didn't realize just how big a deal the dungeon actually was going to be. It could completely rewrite how hero society looks over the next few years just from its existence alone. Not to mention villain organizations that may try and take advantage of the distraction. Lady Artemis, you, if the world finds out about you, and the true extent of the danger of the dungeon, you might be elevated to something of an empress in VIP level. If you die, I don't think we'd stand a chance against anything on the level of the 3 great quests that you described. You are officially one of the most important people in the world. I said, my throat dry. Artemis nodded, her face pinched. If I could, I'd see if any deities that haven't descended from the heavens would be willing to descend onto Earth again just to help, but I don't know if I could even contact them. My divinity was drained a great deal before I arrived, and the heavens aren't as connected to Earth as they used to be, more connected to Gekkai now. Artemis looked exhausted and worried before glancing at the time. Well, that's all the time we have today. We can discuss our options tomorrow. I'll be rushing through the interviews this evening, as we're low on time. You'll likely have 3 new members tomorrow, maybe a fourth if I can talk to Nezu about them. Let's make our way to hero studies. Right, you're an assistant teacher for that class now, aren't you? I asked. She smiled and nodded. The four of us made our way to our class, where we took our seats, Artemis standing by the desk as we waited for our teacher. I wonder who'll be teaching us, Ashido asked Tsuyu. Shrugged. The door shot open and I felt my anxiety spike. All Might, I am here, coming through the door like a normal person, he exclaimed. The classes started to murmur excitedly and I saw Artemis hide an eye roll out of the corner of my eye. I smiled. I can't believe it's really All Might, Kaminari exclaimed. So he is a teacher. This year is gonna be totally awesome. Kirishima pumped a fist. Is he wearing his Silver Age costume? Tsuyu asked, a finger on her lip. So retro. Welcome to the most important class at UA. Think of it as Heroing 101. Here, you will learn the basics of being a pro. Let's get into it. He started to flex and pose, and I facepalmed. I heard May snicker. Today's lesson, he held up a card with battle. Written on it, will pull no punches. Fight training, Katsuki exclaimed, a scary look on his face. He turned around to look at me, drawing a thumb across his throat. I grimaced. But one of the keys to being a hero is looking good. He posed again, pointing to the wall where suitcases came out. These were made based off your quirk registration forms and the designs you put in. Hell yeah, everyone exclaimed, and I felt myself get washed up in the energy with the rest of the class, launching to my feet with a wide smile. I hope it turns out exactly how Dad and I designed it. Meet me at training ground beta after getting suited up. All Might exclaimed. Yes, sir. They say that heroes' clothes make the pros young ladies and gentlemen, and behold, you are the proof. All Might exclaimed as we all made our way out of the tunnel leading to the training ground. I glanced around. Hagakure decided to opt out of her original costume, just wearing her gym outfit. Yaoyorozu, yeah, I can see why she's going to redesign hers. Yikes, that's a lot of skin. I felt myself flush just from looking at her. I quickly looked away, searching for May in the crowd. There she was. She had her bow strapped across her back with a quiver that was divided into 3 sections, arrows with different colored fletching resting inside them. That's weird. She doesn't need arrows for her bow. Her outfit was very steampunk-inspired, wearing a white button-up with a tight corset with 2 straps coming up around her bust and wrapping around her shoulder. She had a utility belt with various gadgets, some looking like grenades and canisters. She had thick leather gloves, aviator goggles, and hat. Knowing her, all her clothes were lined with carbon fiber. She looked awesome. As for me, my own costume was heavily inspired by the ancient Greeks. I wore a detachable blue and white chlamys, a type of Greek cloak with a laurel crown of green leaves. My main outfit consisted of a white chiton, a Greek tunic that went slightly above my knees, with a belt wrapped around my waist holding it tight, so it wouldn't restrict mobility. I wore bronze-colored arm guards that were in actuality a lightweight material that was a lot more comfortable to wear. Underneath my tunic, I wore a dark green pair of pants with bronze greaves going from slightly above my ankle to just below my knees, providing protection while still allowing flexible movement. I also had hard leather boots underneath those greaves. I had my dagger strapped to my hip. Underneath, the ensemble was more modern technology. A tight carbon fiber weave vest protecting my chest, the carbon fiber being lined through my pants as well. Finally, on the opposite side of my dagger was a bronze gladius, a Roman blade from the 3rd century BC, sitting at a short length of 66 centimeters, 26 inches. May, you look so cool. So do you, Izu. You're like an ancient Greek hero, like Perseus or Hercules. She cheered. I nodded with a grin. I was honestly incredibly happy with my costume. It didn't restrict movement except the cape, but it's detachable and is made out of a carbon fiber weave, so I can use it to block bladed weapons. Also, when did you decide to learn to use a sword? May asked. I looked down at the gladius strapped to my hip. I drew it, a metallic shring ringing out. The sound drew the attention of my classmates. I leaned over and whispered in May's ear. I'm usually gonna use the sheath against human villains, or my fists, the blade is for the dungeon. I leaned back, May nodded in understanding. What's up with the different arrows? I asked in a normal tone. May lit up. Oh, these babies do different things based on the color of their fletching. I obviously can't use the highly destructive pulse shots on normal people, right? So I made arrows. The blue fletching one is a capture arrow, the tip exploding into a foam that quickly solidifies when exposed to air. It dissolves with a sibling compound that I keep in a canister on my hip. The same foam is in one of the grenades on my hip, but in a larger quantity for group capture. The yellow fletching are taser arrows, self-explanatory. Finally, the red arrows are just normal arrows, but blunt-tipped for knockout. She explained. I nodded. What about the other 2 grenades on your hip? Net grenade and pulse grenade. Basically, it's an explosion of electricity for mass stunning. I also have flash grenades and a capsaicin grenade, basically pepper spray as a grenade. She reached into her pouch and pulled out a gas mask that would fit over her mouth. That's what this baby is for, along with my goggles for eye protection. Skin irritation I can deal with. I blinked. Damn, I do not want to be on the receiving end of any of those. Achako walked over, a flush on her face from embarrassment. You two look great. I should have been more specific with my own costume. It's a bit skin-tight, not really my style. She rubbed the back of her head. I felt my face flush. Her outfit definitely revealed a lot of her curves. I looked away and coughed. I think it looks great, Achako. Now that you're ready, it's time for combat training. Sir, the full suit of armor I saw earlier spoke. Oh, so that's Ida. He looks so cool. This is the fake city from our entrance exam. Are we going to be doing urban battle maneuvers again? Nope. While you may be used to seeing most villain fights outside, in reality, most villain fights are indoors. Think about it: home invasions, backroom deals, underground lairs. Truly dangerous villains avoid the spotlight. This is why you will be split into teams of 2 on 2 battles. This seems like a lot for the first day. Tsuyu spoke up. I nodded in agreement. All Might froze before quickly looking at Artemis, who I only now realized was standing slightly behind All Might. She smiled and whispered something in his ear. All Might coughed. Right you are, Tsuyu, which is why in reality that will be for another day. Today, we shall be going over basic hand-to-hand combat training along with quirk regulation training. Can you please explain? What do you mean quirk regulation training? Jiru asked. As you may be aware, many of your quirks can be quite dangerous and could potentially end someone's life. In my day-to-day, I have to regularly hold back my strength when apprehending villains. That is what we shall be working on today, restraint. All Might coughed and looked to Artemis, who laughed. Help me. All Might tried to whisper, but it was loud enough that most of our class heard it. Snickers broke out amongst us. Artemis stepped forward. Principal Nezu informed me that All Might is rather new to teaching, so I think it'd be best if I took over for the first semester, while he watches as an aide and a source of professional advice. She said, All Might letting out a sigh of relief. Which is why I have brought out some dummies from another training ground and brought them here. These dummies have sensors in them to determine how much force is applied, and then will tell you if it is a lethal amount, a knockout amount, or something in between. These sensors also read acidity, temperature, electrical current, and also have specific settings for vitals. All Might, please hit one of these dummies with the amount of force you'd use to take down a standard villain. All Might nodded and punched a dummy. Knockout, a robotic voice called out. Bruised ribs, potential internal bleeding. All Might blinked. Artemis smiled. Now, please hit it with as much force as you feel the dummy can handle. All Might nodded and punched it again. Lethal, broken ribs, punctured lung, broken spine, broken neck. The dummy called out. All Might looked a little green, along with a few other students. Artemis turned towards the class. As you can see, All Might has developed a great deal of control over how much force he can apply. You will be attacking these dummies with your quirks and your bodies to help you determine just how hard you should go against a villain with a standard human constitution. Over the course of the lesson, we will be adjusting the settings of the dummies to various levels of resilience to better showcase different strengths of villains. Towards the end of class, we will be having a discussion on reasonable force. The class stared in awe at Artemis. The contrast between All Might's sweating and stuttering and her confident speaking and gentle smile was staggering. The class broke into 4 groups of 5 and went to the various dummies scattered around. My group consisted of Yaoyorozu, Hagakure, Mei, myself, and Kaminari. Artemis walked over to our group first. Kaminari, how much electricity do you believe the human body can handle? I don't know. Guess and use it on the dummy. Kaminari nodded and hesitantly walked over to the dummy and put a hand on it. 500,000 volts. He called, and I blinked in shock. How the fuck does he think that's a non-lethal amount? Lethal, heart attack, Lichtenberg scars throughout most of body, 3rd-degree burns. The dummy called out. Kaminari paled. On average, the most common lethality with alternating current is 100 to 50 volts. However, death has occurred below this range, with supplies as low as 42 volts. Artemis explained. Kaminari threw up. I rubbed his back. I didn't know how dangerous I could be. Kaminari shuddered. That's what this class is for. Artemis gently spoke. The rest of our group nodded, Kaminari shaking still. Now, there is a difference between volts and amps. Volts are the unit of electric potential difference, or the size of the force that sends the electrons through the circuit. Ampere is the unit used to measure the current, or how many electrons are flowing through. The difference between force and number. It's why police tasers can get up to 50,000 volts but are still non-lethal. There's a lot of force behind it, but it's not flowing through the person. Now, contrary to what you may believe, force isn't what's more dangerous. It's actually the flow. Kaminari nodded, a confused look on his face. Artemis sighed. Yaoyorozu patted Kaminari on the shoulder. Look at it this way. One big wave hurts a lot, may cause a few broken bones, right? Yeah. Now imagine 10,000 small waves, all filled with sand. It'd grind you into pieces. Oh, I nodded at Yaoyorozu for helping him understand. Now let's try this. Do 50,000, but try to arc it between your fingers or even just around your hand, like a taser. Artemis explained. While you work on that Izuku, Mei, I want you to punch the dummy with all your strength, then try to regulate down from there. Yaoyorozu, create a weapon you're comfortable with and do the same thing, but focus on where you're striking. A blow to the head can be lethal even with a small amount of force. I'm going to go help other groups now. She walked away, All Might already helping one group, the one with Katsuki, Jiru, Ashido, Kirishima, and Siro. Artemis went to the group with Aoyama, Tsuyu, Iida, Achako, and Todoroki. I turned away and focused on the task at hand. Yaoyorozu was already beating away at a dummy with a bow staff. Let's get started. I spoke. Well, time to finish up the interviews. I thought to myself, walking to my office with Yaoyorozu trailing behind me. Classes had ended a few minutes ago, and I already had Nezu tell Shinsu and Yorumi to meet me at my office. Due to time constraints now implemented by the dungeon opening up, I needed to get started on expanding the familia, starting with my initial 4 picks. Yaoyorozu and I arrived outside my office, where Yorumi and Shinsu were already waiting. I nodded to them. Who first? I'll go if that's okay with you too. Yaoyorozu said. Shinsu and Yorumi nodded, and Yaoyorozu and I made our way into my office. I sat down across from her, much like I did with Hagakure. Okay, we'll be rushing through these a bit faster than I'd prefer, but I already got a pretty good read on you during class today. So, let me explain exactly what will be happening, though you must first sign an NDA. Is that okay with you? I asked. The NDA was something Nezu decided was necessary, Hagakure, Izuku, and Mei all having to sign it. I was given copies to have Hisashi, Inko, Mei's mom and dad, and Takeyama to sign, if only as a formality. Izuku helped me realize just how important I was going to become soon. That's fine with me. I'm assuming that you had something to do with Hagakure's sudden control over her visibility. Yaoyorozu inquired politely. I nodded and smiled. Her intellect was one of the reasons I was interested in inviting her in the first place, but I had also wanted to see what kind of personality she had. Very respectful and kind to her fellow students, and seemed to always want to help. That is correct. Now, let me properly introduce myself. I am the goddess Artemis, and I would like to offer you my blessing and a place in my familia. Excuse you. Basically, the fauna is a blessing that allows normal humans to grow in strength by gaining experience. It's a level-up system, basically. Izuku, Mei, and Hagakure all have the blessing. In fact, Izuku's quirkless. Oh, that explains a lot of things now. Yes, I'd be willing to accept such a boon to my hero career. I'm glad to hear that. You'll have to take off your shirt and lay on the couch, where I shall apply the fauna to your back. It's also where I'll read and update your status as you grow stronger. Quick question, what level are Mei and Izuku? Currently, they're halfway through level 1. Unlike the games you have in this world, the fauna's level up requires a vast amount of experience and time, and often a final push once your stats reach the criteria. I see. Yaoyorozu unbuttoned her shirt and laid down on the couch before unbuttoning her bra. I hope you'll be willing to answer further questions at a later date. Indeed, I straddled Yaoyorozu's hips and quickly applied the fauna. A flash of light and a groan of pain later, and my family has grown by 1. I handed Yaoyorozu her paper. Momo Yaoyorozu. LV1. SDRI0. VITI0. Dex I0. AGI I0. Mag I0. Magic. Skill. Creation. My quirk is now a skill. Izuku theorized that emitters and transformation quirks become skills, while mutations are classified as a part of a creature's race, and thus aren't categorized as a quirk. It's likely that your quirk will be able to draw on your mind to create objects instead of just your body's lipids. Mind. Mana, magic. Oh, I see. With that, the interview with Yaoyorozu was over. In came Shinsu. He sat down across from me and began to fidget. Hello, Shinsu, my name is Artemis. I'm a teacher here at UA. I was recommended to speak to you by Nezu, who was in turn recommended by Aizawa, the teacher for class 1A. Please, tell me about yourself. I'm Hitoshi Shinsu. I grew up in the system, as my parents died when I was young. I was often bullied due to my villainous quirk. I cut him off. Villainous quirk. Yeah, I can brainwash anyone who responds to a question I ask. I blinked. I can see how people would call that a villain's quirk. However, there is no such thing as a villain's quirk or a hero's quirk. Every quirk depends on its user to make a difference in the world. If there was a quirk that could speed up cellular regeneration, it could very easily be used to cause cancerous growths. Your own quirk could be used for quick, stealthy takedowns on villains and as a way to prevent suicide. Shinsu blinked, shocked. I smiled at him. So, I was told you wanted to be a hero, right? Can I ask why? Shinsu looked down in embarrassment. I wanted to prove those bullies wrong. But I guess I also just wanted to help people. I smiled at that. Excellent. I think you'll find yourself right at home with our little group. First, though, you'll need to sign an NDA. Is that okay? Shinsu blinked and nodded. A signing later, followed by a quick explanation and blessing later, and I handed Shinsu his status. Hitoshi Shinsu. LV1. SDRI 0. VITI 0. Dex I 0. AGI 0. Mag I 0. Magic. Skill. Brainwashing. Finally, we were on to the last interview of the day. Yorumi, it's a pleasure to meet you. Yorumi Tajizuki was a pretty young girl with white hair tied into a messy ponytail. She had bright yellow eyes with a hue or orange surrounding them, and the sclera were black, like Ashido's. Her quirk was known as Eclipse. It allowed her to create small flames that were black with yellow edges. They couldn't be put out unless she willed them to. Nezu told me she had a bad history with them and failed the entrance exam because she was scared of her own flames. It's good to be here, Ms. Artemis. I'm under the belief that you're offering an alternate way to being a professional hero, right? She asked, a small smile on her face. I nodded. That's correct. Please tell me about yourself. Yorumi nodded. Well, how much do you know about my history? She asked, a hesitant look on her face. Principal Nezu told me that you were afraid of your flames and that you had a bad history with them. You don't have to go further than that if you don't want to. Yorumi winced before sighing. No, it's fine. I want to be a hero, and you should know some of my history first. I grew up in a rural part of Japan with my mother and older sister. One day, an injured man stumbled upon our home, and we took him in and nursed him back to health. Unfortunately, this man was a dangerous villain who promptly attacked. I was 4 at the time, and that was when my quirk awakened. She choked up before shaking her head. I burned him alive, but unfortunately I couldn't control my flames. My house, my sister, and my mother all went with him. I roamed the countryside for a few days before I was found by a woman, Hecate. I blinked at the name, who took me in, along with a few other orphans. Hecate helped me learn how to use my quirk without losing control, but I could never bring myself to muster up enough power to actually do anything beyond light up a room. One day, Hecate disappeared. We don't know where she went. Where did you go? Well, at that point, the oldest of us, Tiara, had become an adult, and she took us in. Tiara's quirk allowed her to summon shades to fight for her and was abandoned. The other 2 were Salina and Samuel, no last name, twins, both with bunny mutations. They were very fast. Can you describe this Hecate to me? I asked hesitantly. Hecate was the goddess of magic and crossroads. If there was any other goddess who traversed worlds, it would have been her. Oh, sure. She had long black hair and pale skin and always wore a large sun hat. She had auburn eyes and was often found in a black dress, like she was going to a funeral. She was very kind to us, though, despite her severe appearance. I knew Hecate. She was a friend and family, though distant. Really? Yes, which is why I am confused as to how you came to know her. I frowned. Where was she now? I sighed before smiling at Yorumi. Well, I think I'm ready to offer you a place in our group. You'll have to sign an NDA, though. Yorumi nodded. Great. First off, the reason I knew Hecate was because she was a goddess like me. What? Right, well, the gods and goddesses exist, and they're able to bestow blessings upon people known as the Falna, which allows them to grow and get stronger, like a level-up system. I thought I was the only goddess left on Earth, other than Gia, as the rest of our kind went to another world known as Gekai to live as mortals. I came to this world through a fluke, so the fact you knew Hecate give me hope that I'm not alone. Anyway, I'm offering you my blessing and a chance to grow and become a hero. That sounds crazy, but if Principal Nezu believes you, I guess I will too. I'd be delighted to join your group, Artemis. Great. With that, I instructed her to take off her top, which she blanched at. Nonetheless, a quick groan of pain later, and I had finally finished inviting my initial prospects into the Familia. Yorumi Tajizuki. LV1. SDRI0. VITI0. Dex I0. AGI I0. Mag I0. Magic. Slot 1. Ember. Enchant-type magic that can imbue things with fire. Blaze, burn my foes to ashes. Slot 2. Eclipse Flare. Super long chant artillery magic that releases a huge firestorm. Burn, the power and the soul. Until the sacred flame goes out, bring forth glory and power. Burn, confine divine energy within this body and ignite the passion within. Into the blaze and into the sky, may it bestow destruction upon you. Burn, the first flame, Efrit, the ravenous spirit of fire, your only hope. May it form a river, mixing in the tide of flame to wash away your fears. This rage and hatred, thine infirmity and incandescence. Denounce the world, denounce fate, denounce the world. Burn, bear your vessel and devour the sun, drink greedily from its overflowing forge. Burn, eclipse flare. Slot 3. Eclipse ring. Barrier magic that completely burns physical and magical attacks. Dance around spirit of the atmosphere, Lord of Flame. Contract with the guardian of the soul and envelop us with your warmth. Surround us, become a great barrier of elder flame, my name is Nox. Slot 4. Scorching eclipse. Short chant magic that releases a ray of fire. Flash, rays of fire, tear through the darkness. Your lady beseeches you, Cinder, incarnate of fire, king of the blaze. Slot 5. Amaterasu. No chant magic creates a small burst of black flame. Amaterasu. Skill. Eclipse magic. Hecate's teachings I. Twilight Serenade. What the hell? I blinked. There's only supposed to be 3 slots available for magic. Is it because of Hecate's teachings? User was taught by the goddess of magic. Acts as an additional 3 spell slots. Acts as developmental ability mage. And another skill, Twilight Serenade. Raises magic attack power, increases during morning and evening when the sun is low in the sky. This confirms it. You had a direct relationship with the goddess of magic, Hecate. Some of the greatest mortal sorcerers and sorceresses to have ever lived were taught by her. Circe, Pythagoras, and Medea being a few examples. Why you have 5 spells, I will never know. However, due to how low level you are, you'll likely be unable to use the super long chant spell until level 2. I'd stick to your enchant magic, your no chant magic, and your short chant magic as your primary uses. You'll likely be able to cast your barrier spell once before you have a mind down, at least for now. Right, never mind. I'll explain everything tomorrow during our familias meeting. I sighed. Oranos, why must you curse me so? 2 days later, I found myself confused and concerned to find a bunch of reporters standing outside the gates of the school. I shared a glance with May and spotted the excited grin on her face as she strolled right up to them. I sighed. Typical May. Hey, you, can you tell us what it's like to work so closely with All Might? A reporter jabbed a microphone into my face, and I turned toward them. He's a bit of a doofus, but in a giant teddy bear way. He's obviously unaccustomed to teaching, but he has plenty of advice and insight to pass down. I granted an awkward smile and pushed my way past them, grabbing May by the hand and dragging her away from a terrified reporter, who she had been adamantly explaining who she was, her future goals, and talking about her babies at an increasingly manic rate. I spotted Ida giving a heartfelt speech about All Might being a pillar of integrity and respect, and I stifled a laugh at the stifled look of some reporters. May and I made our way towards our classroom, walking by an exhausted-looking Aizawa who was making his way to the gate, an air of annoyance emanating from him. I wished him luck. I jumped at the sound of a thud and turned around and saw the UA security gate snap up. Soon, we found ourselves seated in class. I'm grateful for the intervention of Ms. Artemis. All Might is still new to teaching, so I'm glad she was there to guide him. She gave me the results of your self-restraint training after grading them yesterday. Most of you managed to get down to a non-lethal level by the end of class, but not all of you. Kaminari, make sure you control not just the amount of volts, but the amps of your electricity. Bakugo, restrain yourself. Nitroglycerin is a very dangerous material. I will acknowledge how much effort you've already put into training it, but you still were leaving dangerous levels of burns on your villains. Permanent scarring on the villains you bring in could damage both your reputation as a hero and your pay. It's also just not a good practice. Finally, Ida, your quirk-propelled kicks need some more work on restraining the amount of force. Regardless, good work, class. Now, let's get down to business. Your first task will determine your future here at UA. Attention ran through the room. You must choose your class representative. So normal. Pick me. No me. No, pick me. You'll need my leadership. Everyone, silence. The class representative's duty is to lead others. That is not something just anyone can do. You must first have the trust of every student in the classroom. We shall hold a vote, and you shall not be allowed to vote for yourself. Is that fair? Ida's voice cut through the hollering and smiled at him. His arm was raised just as high as anyone else's, but I respected his ability to silence the class. He'd be a good representative. I agree, that's fair. I spoke up, offering my support. Ida offered me a smile, and the rest of the class deliberated, before finally deciding it was a fair method. Everyone was told to write a name on a piece of paper, then Ida would write it down on the chalkboard, along with how many votes. I quickly scribbled down Ida's name and nodded, content. Izuku Midoriya, 9 votes. Tenya Ida, 4 votes. Momo Yaoyorozu, 4 votes. Katsuki Bakugo, 1 vote. I blinked in confusion at the results. Who voted for Katsuki? I shook my head as I walked forward, the class looking towards me expectantly. I glanced around the classroom for who would have voted for me. Uraraka glanced away, Mei flashed me a cheerful grin, Toru gave a little wave, Yaoyorozu gave me a polite nod, Ida looked away, before locking eyes with me and giving me a firm nod, Kaminari gave me 2 thumbs up, Siro grinned, Shoji nodded at me. And Tsuyu gave a little froggy smile. Huh, okay, I coughed into my hand. Well, since I am apparently your class representative, I think it'd be best if our vice representative was decided between Yaoyorozu and Ida, then whoever decides to concede the position could be the secretary. Is that acceptable, Mr. Aizawa? I looked down at the yellow caterpillar resting on the floor. He opened a single, cranky eye and huffed. That's fine, decide quickly. Ida bowed to Yaoyorozu, chopping a hand. I'll gladly concede the position to you, Yaoyorozu. I am content with being secretary and honored to be given the opportunity to work with you. I blinked. That was fast. After a quick round of morning classes, we made our way to the cafeteria for lunch. I sat down at one of the tables, Mei sliding right in next to me, nudging me with an elbow and slapping a blueprint onto the table. She started chatting animatedly with me, and I covered a fond grin. To my surprise, not a moment later we were joined by a few other classmates, Uraraka, Yaoyorozu, Toru, Jiro, Kaminari, Tsuyu, and Ida. All the people that voted for me. I smiled. So, am I to assume you guys voted for me? You'd be correct, Midoriya. Yaoyorozu looked at me and smiled. Captain. Toru cheered at that while the rest of the table looked confused. Yaomomo, why are you calling Midoriya captain? Jiro asked, looking confused. The 4 of us who had a Falna shared a look, remembering the meeting we had yesterday during lunch, our first full Familia meeting. Even Takeyama made it. Flashback smash. I found myself in a classroom staring at the new members of our Familia. Ms. Takeyama sat next to Artemis, while Mei and I sat on the other side of her. Of the new members, I only recognized Yaoyorozu and Toru. There was a guy with purple hair and eye bags who was glancing at us warily, and a girl with white hair and black sclera sitting next to him. Artemis offered a smile. Welcome to the first meeting of the entire Artemis Familia. As everyone knows, I'm Artemis. I'd like to start off by introducing ourselves to each other, then I'll explain some important information to you all, and finally you can ask me any questions you need. Sound good? Everyone nodded. Great. Izuku, if you would. She gestured to me, I nodded. Well, as most of you would know, I'm Izuku Midoriya. I was the first member of Artemis's Familia. I'm quirkless. It's thanks to her I even have the opportunity to be in the heroics class, and it's because of her I promise to always stand by her side and protect her. I gestured to Mei to go next. She bounced up, a wide grin on her face. Mei Hatsum, at your service, I'm Izuku's partner. He helps me make babies. I coughed into my hand inventions. Artemis and him are the main reason I was able to continue pursuing my dream of being a support hero. I'm grateful for his support. At that last part, she offered me a soft smile and gave me a hug, prompting a cooing sound from Ms. Takeyama and Toru. Well, I guess that means I'm next. I'm Toru Hagekure. I joined the Familia because Lady Artemis said it might help me control my quirk to let me become visible, which it did. At this, she gave a little twirl and an honestly adorable smile. She sat back down. My name is Momo Yaoyorozu. I joined the Familia because of the proof her abilities were legitimate, at least some parts, though I'm not certain I believe she's actual divinity. She has proven the ability to help me become a better hero, however, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. Yaoyorozu smiled at Artemis, who nodded her head in understanding. My name is Shinsu Hitoshi. I always wanted to be a hero, but due to my quirk, I was often told I was nothing but a villain in the making. I joined because Lady Artemis was the first person to tell me that my quirk isn't a villain's quirk, but simply a tool for me to use. She believed in me and is offering me an opportunity to live out my dream. I don't know if she's an actual divinity or not, but regardless, she has my trust and loyalty. Well, I guess it's my turn. I'm Yorumi Tajizuki, and I joined the Familia Because Lady Artemis offered me the opportunity to work past some incidents from my childhood and training to better control my own quirk. We also discovered something else, but I'm sure that'll be brought up later in the meeting. I'm fairly convinced about her divinity. I'm Yute Kiyama, also known as MT Lady. I joined because I already had proof of her abilities, and she gave me the opportunity to be a better hero than I was, and to save more lives. Right, now with introductions out of the way, I think I better explain some things about how familias work, along with answering any questions. I also discovered something the other day that's quite important. Artemis then went into detail about how magic worked, explaining what a mind down was, along with how the Excelia influenced your growth based on the actions you took. She then explained the structure of familias, and how there would usually be a captain and a vice-captain in each familia, which went about handling paperwork, finances, supplies, and determining when expeditions would occur, with the help of the god or goddess of the familia. Typically, the captain of each familia is either the first person to join the familia or the highest level in the familia. Some familias also decide who's the captain by merit. I believe that Izuku should be the captain of my familia, despite Takeyama being older. Is that okay with everyone? I don't see a problem with it, Toru smiled. I agree. From what I've seen from Midoriya, he's an intelligent young man who puts others before him. Yaoyorozu offered a polite smile in my direction. I don't know anyone here, but I hope to change that eventually. If they're vouching for you, Midoriya, then I don't see any issue with it. Yorumi spoke up. Hitoshi nodded next to her. Takeyama shrugged. I mean, I'm going to be busy with hero work more often than not, so I don't really mind someone else taking the reins here. Mei just grinned at me like I was obviously the choice. I sighed, a wry smile coming to my face. I guess that means I'm the captain of the familia then. Is Mei my vice captain? I asked Artemis. She paused before shaking her head. I don't think Mei would want that responsibility. From what I've seen, however, Yaoyorozu would be better suited for helping you with the task. While you're not going to have as much paperwork to do, since the guild isn't a thing in this world, you'll still need someone who understands that kind of responsibility to rely on. Mei, as much as I love you, you're a bit of a spaz. No, that's fair. Mei grinned. I'd rather just be Izuku's partner. In a romantic sense, Yorumi asked, a grin coming to her face. Mei pinked, I pinked, and we shook our heads in unison. We're just friends. We chimed simultaneously before reddening even further. Everyone in the room laughed. Ah, but you'd be so cute together, my sister would agree. Takeyama teased. Gentle ribbing from the rest of the group continued, a steady rhythm in our relationships with each other beginning to form. Yaoyorozu was a polite, soft-spoken young lady and didn't seem used to casual banter. Hitoshi barely spoke, but when he did it with soft, sarcastic quips. Yorumi slowly participated in conversation more and more, becoming more animated as she did. Toru was just as bubbly as ever. Takeyama seemed to act more like a big sister for the group. Artemis coughed into her hand. I'm glad everyone's getting along. I do have one more bit of information to share, though. Everyone quieted down and lent their attention to Artemis. Yorumi and I discovered that I'm not the only deity on Earth. In fact, Yorumi was raised by a cousin of mine, Hecate. She's the goddess of magic and crossroads, so I wouldn't be surprised if she actually regularly traversed between Gekkai and Earth, as she'd be one of the few capable of it. However, the fact she was here means that there are potentially other deities on Earth, which would be extremely useful in fending against the dungeon. I doubt it, however, since the dungeon only awakened after I arrived. If another deity was still here, it would have awakened earlier. Then, why didn't it awaken for Hecate? I suspect she used magic to hide her aura. That, and my arrival here wasn't the most discreet. I had been channeling a lot of arcanum. What's arcanum? Yaoyorozu asked. I brightened up and looked at Artemis in anticipation. She caught my look and smiled. She lit up in a kaleidoscope of colors, an aura slowly filling the room that, as I knew from experience, wiped away any and all doubts of her divinity. There was just something magical, something holy about witnessing arcanum. It's a feeling that you can't really identify, but one that resides in your soul. I suspect that this is what devotees of religions feel. Faith. Somewhere else in the school, a girl suddenly drops to her knees in prayer, a feeling running through her soul. Tears of joy spilled from her eyes. Her classmates looked at her in confusion. "Oh," Yaoyorozu quietly whispered, an identical look of shock and awe and a hint of rapture on her face. The room was quiet as Artemis slowly reined her arcanum back in. Not a second later, the rumble of an earthquake shook the room. Everyone froze. I swallowed a lump in my throat. "Maybe you shouldn't do that again," I whispered. Artemis looked at me pale and nodded her head. End flashback. After that, we concluded our meeting, promising to meet up again in a few days. I looked over at Gyro. "Well, you know how we're all in the same club. I was elected the leader of the club by Artemis, and so I'm being called captain." I gave a grin to Yaoyorozu. "She's my vice captain, though." "Oh, that's so cute. Not only are you captain and vice captain, but you're class president and vice president. Destined romance." Toru cheered, and Mei started to choke on her rice. Strangely, so did Uraraka. "Ah, no, I barely know Yaoyorozu so far, so I doubt there's any feelings of attraction." I must agree. Perhaps in the future, though. I snapped up to look at Yaoyorozu, who was covering her smile with a hand. It took me a moment to realize she was teasing me. "Yaoyorozu," the table laughed. Mei glared at the girl. She wrapped her arms around my bicep. "My partner." She hissed. I blinked before my face went bright red. "I thought you two weren't romantic." Mei was silent for a moment before she opened her mouth to say something. Before she could, though, an alarm interrupted her, screeching through the cafeteria. "Warning, level 3 security breach." A robotic voice called out. Iida turned to an upperclassman. "What's that mean?" "It means someone broke the perimeter of the school. This hasn't happened in the whole time I've been at UA." Soon, we were all mobbed by a plethora of panicked students. I felt myself get pushed and pulled, and soon was separated from the group. "Damn it, why is everyone panicking? We need to calm down, someone's going to get hurt." I heard a cry of pain, and my eyes snapped over to see Toru getting pushed to the ground and trampled on. I growled and jumped, my falna burning across my back. All of the students around me got pushed back by the force of my jump. I used my high dexterity stat to jump off people's shoulders, accidentally knocking a few people down, before I landed next to Toru and helped her up. I glanced out the window and spotted the press hounding Mr. Aizawa and Present Mike. "It's just the press." I quickly looked around before spotting Iida flying through the air above everyone, slapping against the wall above the exit. "Everyone calm down. There is no danger, it's just the press. You are students of UA, you should know better to freak out like this." He yelled. Everyone stopped at the sound of his voice before looking around. A few people chuckled, and I let out a sigh of relief. "Good job, Iida." "All right, today's training is going to be a little different," Aizawa was telling the class. "You'll have 3 instructors, me, All Might, and another faculty member. 3 pros, is that because of the break-in? What kind of training is this?" Siro raised his hand. Aizawa, with a dramatic flourish that I didn't think he was capable of, flashed a card with the word rescue on it. "You'll be dealing with natural disasters. Shipwrecks, stuff like that." Aizawa said. "Disasters, huh, sounds fun." Kaminari told Ashido, who pumped her fists in excitement. "Totally." She cheered. The rest of the class chattered excitedly, and I smiled. I'm looking forward to this. I looked over at Mei, who was vibrating in her seat. I have so many babies to test for this. One of my grenades acts as a fast-acting expansive foam that generates enough force to act as a car jack, letting me lift off debris easily. Oh, I also have another one that releases foam to put out flames. I'm so excited." She rambled, and I laughed. "Cool down there, Mei. You'll have the opportunity to show me all the babies you made sooner or later." Mei's eyes sparkled, and I felt my face heat up a little. I turned away to hide the redness. "All right, everyone, calm down. I'm not finished yet. What you wear in this exercise is up to you. I know you're excited for your costumes, but keep in mind they're new and they may get in the way. This training is at an off-campus facility, so we'll be taking a bus to get there." We made our ways outside, and Iida immediately took up his role as secretary seriously, blowing a whistle. Please line up with your student numbers in 2 neat lines so we can load on quickly. I walked over and peered into the bus before sighing. Ida, it's an open layout, just let them pile on. I said. Ida's face fell and he dropped to his knees in dramatic depression. My boarding strategy ruined. I laughed. Ashido walked over and patted him on the back. It's okay, exit sign, chill out. She giggled. Soon, we found ourselves on the bus making our way to rescue training. I was sitting between Suyu and Mei, who I was slowly realizing was glued to my side. You know, I tend to speak what's on my mind. Suyu spoke up. Midoriya, Mei, you two have very similar quirks, don't you think? I blinked before rubbing the back of my head. I don't really think it's going to be a secret much longer, at least in the class. Too many people know. Well, that's actually because they're not our quirks. Artemis has the ability to bestow a permanent blessing on someone, which allows them to steadily increase their own abilities. It also grants a few other bonuses, and it's unique for each person. It also grows based on how the person acts and fights, working around the experience of the user. I said, it appears at a tattoo on our backs, though she can hide it, which is why you guys haven't seen it yet. That's awesome. Is that what your special club is? People with that blessing? I nodded. That's right. Toru and Yaoyorozu also have the blessing, but since theirs is brand new, they're not as developed as Mei's and mine. I shrugged. I caught Katsuki glaring at me. He huffed. So that's how you did it, Deku. He grumbled. I blinked. Why is he so quiet? I wonder if I could get her blessing. It'd definitely help me stand out. My quirk isn't the most flashy. Kirishima spoke up. My hardening is super strong and can destroy villains pretty easily, but it's not anything special to look at. I sharply looked over at him. That's not true at all. I think your quirk is amazing and definitely pro-hero material. You really think so? I feel it'd be easier to stand out if I had a flashier quirk. My naval laser is both strong and flashy. Aoyama cheered, doing a flamboyant pose before he almost fell over from the butt hitting a minor pothole. Ashido laughed. It'd be better if you didn't get a tummy ache every time you used it. She teased. Aoyama's face drooped. If anyone has a flashy quirk, it's Todoroki and Bakubro. Kirishima pointed out. Sure, but Bakugo's always angry, so he'll never be that popular. The hell you say, frog face. I'll kick your ass. Katsuki yelled, jumping up from his seat, small pops igniting in his palms. Jiro leaned away from him, wincing at the volume. You know, it really says something when we just met you, but already know your personality is flaming crap mixed with garbage, Kaminari smugly pointed out, ignorant of Katsuki's rage slowly building up like a volcano. I'll make you regret you were ever born, Pikachu. Katsuki screamed. I laughed and his red eyes darted towards me. I flinched and glanced away. I can't believe Katsuki's being teased. Everyone, quiet down, we're here. Aizawa called out. Yes, sir. Soon we piled out of the bus, arriving at a giant dome-like structure with someone in a stylized astronaut suit standing in front. It's 13. My eyes widened and I started to fanboy, Uraraka joining in right next to me. Mei looked at us with fondness. I love 13. She's one of my favorite heroes. Welcome to Unforeseen Simulation Joint. You can call it USJ. It's filled to the brim with just like Universal Studios Japan. It's filled to the brim with simulated natural disasters. Fires, windstorms, shipwrecks, landslides, and more. Now, before we begin, I have a few things to discuss. As you may be aware, I have a powerful quirk called Black Hole. It allows me to suck up things and grind them to dust. That's right, Uraraka cheered. You've rescued so many people with it. You're correct, but my quirk can also very easily be used to kill someone. Her grim statement shocked the class into silence. We thought back to our first heroics class, restraint. Some of you also have powers that can be dangerous. In our society, all quirks are regulated, so we can often forget how dangerous they can be. You can accidentally hurt someone if you're not careful. Thankfully, Artemis and all might already taught you the importance of restraint. You've likely witnessed just how lethal your quirks can be. Today, you'll use those to rescue. That's what a hero is all about, helping others. The class clapped. 13 is so cool. All right, now that that's over, Aizawa cut off and looked to the fountain in the center of the facility where a black and purple fog formed. Shit, Stay together and don't move. 13. Protect the students. Has the training started already? I thought we were rescuing people, Kirishima asked. A group of people began to walk out of the fog, the first person appearing being covered in hands. Gross, are those real? I shuddered. After a moment, I spotted a few of them dragging a huffing and snorting creature behind them. It looked half man, half bull. A few cages were dragged out as well, filled with small green creatures and shadowy humanoids. At first I thought they were mutants, but when I caught the red gleam in their eyes, I realized. Those are monsters from the dungeon. How did they get them? Artemis explained to me what kind of monsters appear on the first 20 floors of the dungeon, and I soon recognized which ones we brought. A minotaur, goblins, and war shadows. Goblins alone would be enough to threaten a normal human, but war shadows were called rookie killers in Gekkai and could easily kill many lower-ranked heroes. Minotaurs, however, those were middle-floor monsters. They could take on a top 50 hero if they weren't combat-based. How did they get them? None of them have falnas, they must have strong quirks then. Finally, the plaza was filled with cages of monsters, villains, and the smoke portal dispersed, forming a hazy man in a suit. I swallowed. This isn't a test, those are real villains. Aizawa spoke grimly. Aizawa, has Nezu told you about Artemis? I asked quickly. Aizawa glanced at me and nodded. Some of those are from the dungeon, be very cautious. Monsters are dangerous. Aizawa stilled and nodded. I'm glad Artemis updated my status last night. Izuku Midoriya. LV1. SDRE 561, right arrow, a 830. VITG 301, right arrow B 730. Dex D 609, right arrow S 953. AGIB 803, right arrow SS 1003. Mag I 15, right arrow H 113. Magic. Slat 1. Midnight Serenade. Protection magic that steadily heals wounds inflicted on the user and largely raises their agility and dexterity while active. Constantly drains mind. Its effectiveness depends on the user's magic stat. And you were just like the moon, so lonely, so full of imperfections. But just like the moon, you shine in times of darkness. Midnight Serenade. Skill. Argonaut. Ilio's Passion. Irikiparimvasi. The heroics classes spiked my stats like nobody's business. May's stats were all B, except her SDR, which was A, and her magic, which was still 0. Artemis told me if I didn't have Irikiparimvasi, my AGI would have been capped at 999. An ominous voice spoke out. Strange. The schedule said All Might would be here. I only see 13 and a Racerhead. So you used the press to sneak in. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? The villain covered in hands rasped, scratching at his neck. I brought so many NPCs to come meet him. Maybe if I kill a few kids, he'll show up. A manic laugh broke from his voice before he coughed. 13, why aren't the alarms going off? Yaoyorozu asked sharply, a hint of panic in her voice. I couldn't blame her. Good question, I don't know. Is the entire campus under attack? Or is it just us? Regardless, if the alarm isn't going off, then one of these villains must have a quirk jamming it. Ida analyzed. I nodded, agreeing with him. We need to evacuate. I spoke up. Ida, you'll have to run all the way back to the school since communication is down. Can you do that? I commanded. Ida hesitated. I don't want to abandon my classmates in a time of need. Ida, you are the fastest amongst us. It has to be you. We need those reinforcements. 13 nodded in agreement. 13, get them back to the school. Kaminari, try to use your quirk to contact campus. Yes, sir. Wait, Mr. Aizawa, your quirk won't work on the monsters or the villains with mutant quirks. What are you going to do? You can't fight them on your own. I exclaimed. You excel in ambushes and one-on-one fights. You can't be a pro if you're a one-trick pony, Midoriya. Aizawa reassured before he jumped down to the plaza and immediately began taking them down. Wow, I guess I shouldn't have underestimated him. Midoriya, stop analyzing, we have to go. Ida called, I nodded, and began making my way back to the entrance with the rest of the class. we were quickly cut off by the smoke villain forming in front of us. It's a pleasure to meet you. We are the League of Villains. I know it's impolite, but we decided to invite ourselves in this haven of justice to say hello. Besides, isn't this a fitting place for All Might, the symbol of peace, to take his last breath? I believe he was supposed to be here today, and yet I see no sign of him. I suppose it doesn't matter. I still have a role to play. The mist villain seemed to unravel like a bat opening his wings, and 13 quickly uncapped her gloves in preparation to attack, but had to quickly abort as Katsuki and Kirishima jumped forward, yelling, "Don't underestimate us." Katsuki screamed. A blast of smoke from an explosion blinded us for a moment. Kirishima grinned. "You should have been more aware of who you were attacking." The smoke cleared, revealing the mist villain to be unharmed. That was close. "But you should be more careful, children. Otherwise, someone might get hurt." "Get out of the way right now," 13 called. "I'll scatter you across the facility." The mist villain's smoke quickly enveloped the class, and everything went black.